Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us here. Welcome to the Phil Rice Substack, and I'm here with a wonderful brother, colleague, and fellow creator, the artist formerly known as. Oh, hey, wait a minute, our friend Fool. And I love the new upgrade there. And thank you so much for joining us, brother. How are you doing? It's been a while since we caught up.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I can't remember exactly what we talked about last time, but you can call me Darian. That's my real name. I did have it up at one point, but yeah, I bounce around. Um, but yeah, I'm doing good. Gonna be a pleasure, and I hope the audience enjoys it also.
Thank you, Darren. We're making stuff, we're doing stuff, we're talking about stuff, and so to come together and on this wonderful platform to share the what we can to sort of help move the needle in a direction that I think is many would agree that being able to have kind of open conversations about things that we feel are important that we can back up with some level of um, not just scholarly sort of agility, but also like with some felt presence as well. Like there's a heart, I think, that's sort of missing, like a substantialness. And when I've heard you speak and from our last conversation, it's funny because I was going through, obviously Substack allows you to upload shorts from conversations directly to YouTube, and I saw a couple that we did, and what we were talking about last time, which was, geez, it was over a year ago, I think. This kind of we're just we're sort of we're identifying gaps that may be falling under the radar but are significant, and they're slowly being expanded without even going into the intentional kind of efforts to expand those gaps that are outside of the general public's awareness. But we kind of watch, what do you call watchmen, or whatever, like we're aware of these things and we want to highlight them, and we're also trying to articulate with some level of modern relatability, strategies and tactics and methods. And this is not a new thing. Whatever it is that we're going through, this is nature. Everything is cyclical. It's just that the dressing is a little different. The principles are a universal and eternal in a sense, but there are it's the old playbook, but just a new, like I said, a new dressing. And in these times that we're in, what can we look back to that has served our ancestors, and what timeless wisdom is available to us that's practical, more than just talking about stuff, that we can start to bring into our lives, right?
Well, when you're describing how we're going about this, I was just thinking about like mycelium, just like the mushrooms under the ground. They've just spread. They're connecting this immense network across all the other plants in the area. This sort of rhizomatic brain-like structure under the soil that just connects all the little nodes of trees. I guess I've come to be sort of Hindu facing. I pick from multiple cultures, but I found deepest root in ancient Indian, well, everything basically. It seems to be the oldest, or that which is referenced the most from all further cultures after it. So it acts as a. I feel somewhat robbed that in my teens, like they start philosophy with the Greeks. They don't go really back beyond that. They sort of seem to think that philosophy came about during the Greek period, and that seems like a great disservice to history and to us in our attempt to understand, to love Sophie, to love Sophia. In the same way that the word psychology has been butchered, philosophy has too. I mean, psychology, your soul. It is the study of your own soul. Now we are, we don't have soul anymore. We have mind, which is sort of reduction of it, it's lost some of that sort of mythic potency, as we seem to do with so many things. We seem to have a nature of reduction that just sort of washes over everything else and sucks the pigment out of it, that like spiritual flavor. And we get this sort of rice, this unflavored rice pudding slop of culture.
Yeah, I think, this is a great place to start. This kind of bait and switch with a flimsy simulacra that's like, here you go, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it looks good, kind of smells okay.
Yep.
Then once you sort of get that into your diet regularly over time, because it's not an instant noticeable thing, it's over time. You feel this kind of a lessening of something that, because I think what it is that, your attention can be in many places at once, right? The nature of the curiosity tendrils of your spirit, or, looking at, they go, oh, like, look at all these shiny things there are to explore. But there's a level of depth that's being that those things come at the cost of. And, I just want to come back to what you said about the, our oldest reference point. Like you said, from my understanding, the most sort of publicly known, the longest timeline that we have of the deepest philosophy in some cases is, like you said, like we're talking Vedas, someone mentioned to me that we're talking 30,000 years of documentation. I mean, that's the ostensible apparent understanding. We have references to ancient technology, to golden ages of, to deep wisdom, to societal structures that were, it's seemingly quite functional and allowed, it gave width and allowance for, and acknowledged, like, I'm just thinking about, when I look around my neighborhood and I think about what I've grown up with, and I look at what was available to me as a young person, even now, if I wanted to step back into that world, it's not satisfying. It's a kind of a, like I said, it's this kind of like, here's a thing. Oh, you're into that. Well, here's that. Here's how and it's like, and I'm pretty sure if you went to a local congregation, you asked everyone honestly, is this really hitting the spot? Like, is this really giving you what, you're being told this when you read the book, when you get your book, okay, and you read this book and you go through it and go, man, this sounds amazing. Look at these times. And then I asked my brother-in-law, he's a Catholic dude, and I said, so just exactly like, because he's quite knowledgeable too, intelligent chap. I said, when in the timeline did all the magic stop? Because all the stuff was out on the street, and then all of a sudden it just went away.
Yep.
And in some countries, if you haven't seen a UFO or an alien or a ghost or had some kind of like spiritual experience, you tend to be in the minority. And I feel like there is, I mean, if we're just real about it, there's, in my view, the entertainment products of the modern day, part of their purpose is to sort of like slowly erode away this kind of specialness but I mean, it's a multi-angular sort of, it's not just entertainment products, but as far as like people are genuinely seeking satisfying meaningfulness, but you have to go a little bit deeper. I think, fellowship with your congregation is valuable. Don't get me wrong. Being with like-minded people can help you soak it in more. But if the overall thing is not, I mean, I feel for the pastors and the preachers up the front going, man, I got to deliver something that's going to move people today. I'm essentially here as a hierophant, as a facilitator for some kind of meaningful experience. And you can have an experience in a building with the people there who are all there for the same thing. But, how potent is it? Are you going to get a visitation? Are you going to have a peak experience? Are you going to have something that's going to elevate you and bring you to life? And I'm not talking about chasing altered states here, but I'm also not dismissing the value of them either.
Well, I think there's I don't know if I brought up the PSI inhibition effect, but
Mm.
people have been conditioned sort of. We're very frontal lobe dominant, just all over the world now, and so we're very controlled. Our experiences are very controlled, whether it's through narratives or through our own sort of perceptual focus, what we attend to religiously. We form rituals around perception, and then we continue to experience that perception. And we've sort of had that gamed to where we do not perceive things outside that boundary anymore. We don't want to. Our states, our education reaffirms that we should not look outside of this box. Which is, I mean, I brought up mushrooms and the mycelial structures. My great introduction to magic, my breaking free of materialism, was through psychedelics, through mushrooms and LSD, which turn off those centers of control in your brain. They're not really adding a new function; they're just turning off the things that control that act as, like cellulose, like rigid structures to channel you towards something. They basically just give you the freedom to, you're not what are you not doing? You're not connecting or channeling into some specific point. You're just broad spectrum consciousness. And from that freedom, for one, it's overwhelming. I think being an American, this sort of propaganda about freedom, liberty, you're not really exposed to genuine freedom. Yeah, like real freedom, like the sort of moksha, like nirvana, the freedom of enlightenment kind of thing. That is terrifying. The sort of you must fear and love the Lord sort of thing. Like it's incomprehensible perhaps experience. But it is also like the most attractive thing. So it's like the most terrifying and attractive thing all at once, which sort of reminds me of Pan, sort of Eros, the erotic sort of Pan figure, the all god outside of the city, sort of in the wild.
I don't think it can be understated the power, the transformative power of reality dissemination, or the curated or provided experience, and how that changes one. And this thing can sneak up underneath. Most of what is happening, that has happened in the world as far as societal control goes, is very covert. It's not in your face. I do believe it is a bit more, the architects behind a lot of this tend to be a little more brazen nowadays with their sort of deployment, and but without getting sort of into that, I mean, that topic's been fleshed out to death. We're talking more solutions here, but it's good to reference point, the fact that, there are, there's people who are actively saying
it's good to look at them for the sort of like it's fun to do white hat, black hat, like hacking, like psychology, or white hat. It's sort of white, black hat yoga, the left and right hand path. That's sort of, I find joy in the battle. Like it's a fun thing. It's just sort of getting all the people, getting to a world without good and evil seems very far off, but it seems like a fun, enjoyable process of like, there's people who conflict with me, but they're not evil. They're just another way. And I think eventually, if sort of the polarities stop warring and they start to actually, engage in that, what's called in cognitive science, opponent processing, like your left and right hemisphere do. They push against each other to find a stable way. Sort of like you can be more stable if you push from both sides than if you're, sort of that. So you have one hand or one side of your brain, which is the left hand, the linear logical masculine, and it's not quite a pure division like this. And then you have the feminine, fluid, holistic dream myth realm. And both of those, they would appear to be, they're two sides, they're in opposition, but they're really not. The opposition is our creation. It's our utilization of these two different realms. So you see this expanded from, like, if you want to think macrocosmically, a lot of what I talk about, regardless of what scale I'm pointing at the time, it can be expanded into, or it can be expanded or shrunk to other scales. So like if I'm talking to someone and I'm helping them with a psychological problem, I'll always like to sprinkle in, like, oh, now look at, imagine the city as a person, imagine the nation as a person, imagine the world as a person. Before we got on, I told you about the importance of deity worship or interest to me, and I think that's because the mind or we understand the universe best as if it were a person, and at a certain point of doing this, it just becomes a person. Like, it's an actual, like, I think in Western magic would be the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. It just takes the appearance of it's called Ishta Devata, your Ishta Dev, your the basically the form of God that chose you. That's sort of all it is. So it's like, I'm very open to a world where, some people choose Christ as their chosen. It's what calls to them, whatever. And it's just the mechanisms in the religion systems themselves that I have issues with. I'm not like a atheist or something, and even for atheists, I feel like I'll have to do a whole thing about atheists, or for them. Like, atheists have made themselves hard to help in a way, like it is sort of that. Atheists remind me of that depiction of Lucifer where he's like scowling, where he's like Anakin Skywalker. That painting, where he's sort of like, he has his wing over his face like this, and it's this sort of resentful teenager energy, which is, it's rightfully there in a way, because the powers that be have abused people, and sort of they've corrupted the image of sovereign authority. And I think sort of yoga, the purpose of yoga, alchemy, magic, whatever we're doing, any sort of communal activity, is to become that sovereign agent ourselves, and to commune with any other sovereignties. That's sort of the grand image, getting to a state where we are complete, and we interact with other wholes, like whole people. The devas act as template for this, so it's sort of a, what do they call it, ascended master type. Like, there's different new age, or there are both people, whether they're a psychopomp, a fiction, a character, or an actual person who had attained some greatness. That doesn't really matter to me very much, because it's the just working with the person as image. It seems to be more impactful than the step scientific sort of methods that we now use, where we need it all to be rational, to make sense. And this is just a very tiny a tool in our arsenal of consciousness that we've just focused on, where the modern world requires us to basically only wear these glasses, not the don't have the big bug-eyed, like, thousands of different lenses, that I think we perhaps should move toward.
Mm. Yeah. So I tell my friends, I say, look, God wants friends.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, there's those people that are looking, you know, and it's like, you know, you there's all of these options to explore. And imagine if you're like, because you know, I've been like, you know, so if you're the smartest guy in the room, right? You know, like you're like, okay, am I in the right room? Okay, well, at certain times of the day and certain times of the week, it's, you know, you want to help people out, you know, to share the knowledge. And look, I was teaching kids for many years as a music teacher, and they would surprise me with stuff like, I'm like, wow, you know, they would bring me a problem or an insight that made me go, wow, you know, and I was like going, you know, you're just sharing that, right? But you covered so much great area there. Now, I wanted to talk about scales, as far as like, you know, they're almost like fractals,
Yep.
bits of fractals almost. And this ability to kind of like, this is one of the reasons I love the tarot. It's so accessible for scales. Like, so if you look at like sort of Crowley's approach to the deck, and you know, you've basically got the elements anthropomorphized into these court cards, and then you've got, you know, so you know, the knight's the fire, the queen's the water, the prince is the air, and the princess is the earth, sort of thing. You've got these scales within them, and then you've got the Greek gods representing, you know, a category of qualities, like, you know, so like they've got the good and the bad, right? So you know, you can look at these things and you hear the stories and the myths, and it's like, well, at their best they behaved like this, and at their worst they behaved like this. But when you've got the sweet spot incorporated into your own life and integrated into your own life, you know, you've got a nice balance point there, right? You know, and so this idea of you know, equilibrium throughout the various strata of your personal matrix. You know, I'm trying to not get too caught up into flash words here, into weird buzzwords and stuff like that. But you know, making things relatable, especially with, I feel like there's an, it's almost like there's an there's an imbalance in the air element from a hermetic point of view in the modern day, where we're just constantly front loaded against our will with information, and the information level of the experience is just one aspect, but it's lopsided to the you know, to the, and like you said, you know, psychedelics have played a big role in my life 2 years ago as a musician. You know, I mean, I wasn't really much of an alcohol consumer, and I'm kind of grateful for that. I didn't really find that to be useful in a lot of ways. If anything, it tended to go one way more than the other. But things like, you know, cannabis and you know, rarely I would have things like, you know, LSD and mushrooms and things like that. Like, I didn't have mushrooms until sort of many years ago, and I have to say, I never wanted to engage these things socially. I more wanted to just like take the thing, lie in my bed, okay, teach me. And then all of a sudden I would hear a bird call in the distance in the middle of the quietest night. And
it would
then
just
I
like
would
cascade, all of these like insights would just come out of it. And it's
so, you know, it makes me think of this word shaman going, I don't know what, you know, I think about where the definitions of details of what that word means, but this idea of this kind of just like, just let go. You don't need to know. You just need to sit back and listen and watch what unfolds rather than trying to figure things out. I would find personally, like the times that I've taken LSD, and like I haven't taken LSD for many years. I'm on a very different path now, but when I did take it, I mean, the experience was always interesting. Don't get me wrong; it was incredible, right? But it was always the following days where I'd be, you know, I'd be in this very contemplative mode with my journal and writing, and I'd be like going, man, you know, like, and I harvested some of the most valuable insights from those experiences. And you know, I feel the same can be drawn from having experience with deity. You know, if you choose to focus on this, you know, experiences with you know, out of body experiences and dream work, and that you know, you can wake up from a lucid dream feeling extremely invigorated or contemplative or these types of things too. And these are low hanging fruit that you don't have to go and walk down some dark alley and see a guy with a trench coat and saying, bro, I want to go on a shamanic trip sort of thing. I'm just being silly here, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Well, I always equate psychedelics to like a TNT. Like you're mining the gold from your system, and you're doing this through slow methods of meditation, of journaling, of whatever else. Sometimes you have a problem so large, like you really need a blast to break free of it. I mean, because I was basically searching for like a don't kill yourself pill. Basically, it was like a teenage youth, horrible, like just the pain of being a sensitive young man, and just not being able to deal with like, this is the world, like really this is what we accept, like this is good enough for everyone else. How are you putting up with this? And then materialism and atheism was everywhere, so it's like there's no with a world of suffering and no sort of afterlife or any sort of point. It was just like, oh, I should probably just kill myself. But I had an intuition of like, okay, I need to try everything else first, because that's a very that's a very intense solution. And then I studied. I was already studying psychology and all the materialist methods of help, of healing, whatever else. And psychedelics just sort of pushed me over into made me focus on yoga, religious studies, and sort of the deeper foundations and metaphysics under all of the other systems of assumption, of belief systems, whatever else. I also, what you said earlier about UFOs, I think it was either Steiner or Jung, they may have both said it, but they said spiritual experiences in a materialist mind would begin to appear as UFOs and aliens, because they could not process the spiritual phenomena occurring. So they would start to come about as technological imagery, and as if it were man-made or made by a conscious agency, instead of existent beings in themselves, sort of communing with us. I know Steiner talked about it, but I thought Jung did also in his therapy with many people who claimed to have UFO experiences. He sort of he found a pattern of the materialism doing this to people. So that was interesting. It was relevant.
Sorry, can I just jump in with something quick?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt your stream of thought, but I wanted to just touch on that, because I do get the feeling that I'm trying to reflect on myself and find a valid point here, but I think that when meaningfulness is trying to find you, it'll find its way through a relatable lens of experience. And so, light as it comes through comes into the world, will shine through these things. It's trying to find you. It's wanting to, for you to look at bigger, higher things. And, I think that as the materialistic, atheistic sort of worldview becomes more forcefully kind of shoehorned into everyday life, we're more likely to have these, and that narrative gets catered to by various sorts of popular sort of media and things. Sorry, but I didn't interrupt you there, brother. I just wanted to point that out. Yeah.
And then you brought up the shamanism. I haven't studied it deeply enough to give a full talk about it, but in India they had, like, there's yoga, and then there's tantra, and then there's Sankhya. There's various sort of traditional schools, and they have one form, I think it's of Shiva, called Pashupati, but he's basically the shaman. That's what he is. He's the god who wears the cloaks, the masks of animals, in order to understand that basically what the shaman does is it tracks animals. It finds out it wears other people's faces in order to empathize with them and understand their processes. So like the shamanic traditions of every culture, they've always got these, they're wearing antlers, they have the face paint, they're going into these rituals, becoming other things in order to I mean, there's practical elements of, you know, finding where the herds go and understanding things of this nature. What are predators afraid of? Maybe we can set these up and protect ourselves. Things like this. But in that mimicking, that sort of core skill learned through this of mimicking, you start to look higher. Like, okay, there's people. I can mimic them. I can empathize with them. I can heal them. I can help them by basically becoming them, and then figuring out from inside them what's wrong, and then giving them that sort of answer. So that's a little bit higher than the animal. Empathizing with plants, like when plants basically talk to shamans, and it's like, here, put me with this, and I will give you this thing. And it's like, how did they know this? How did they discover that? You know, like ayahuasca is a very commonly used example. How did they know that you need to boil this root with those leaves in order to get this experience? And then it sort of refines further into yoga, where it's like, oh, I can become that one, like capital T-O, that one, like I can become God, basically. Or I can empathize with reality itself as a person. And this is where you sort of get the progression into yoga. Yoga meaning yoke, union. So it's very similar word to communion. What you said about the Greek gods, when I think about the Greek pantheon, I think they were on approach to becoming as refined as the Indians were, but they were stunted by, not even sure whether I'd like to call it Christianity. Rome and Judaic influence acted to sort of suppress the natural progress of pagan psychology in a similar way as occurred in India and Egypt and Persia. I think those civilizations before. I sort of think progress stopped with the Greeks, or like the natural flow of consciousness stopped at the Greeks, and Rome sort of implanted this sort of foreign intelligence into, or expanded this foreign intelligence of, we want to rule people, and that is more important than what actually is. I think around that time that became sort of the mainstream, and it's, you know, expanded through the Holy Roman Empire and all of this. That sort of a period of great veiling to push people toward sort of covert ends. It stopped being so much about. It stopped being so organic, I guess would be the best way to say it.
Yeah, I think too that you know, there's this idea that like ancient people weren't as smart as we are now. I think that's very
I think they were very different, though. Not that they were less smart, but like Steiner talks about the different eras of consciousness, like how basically back, I don't exactly know the clear cuts when it changes, and there's probably a gradient like seasons, but people were much more, I think he calls it atavistically clairvoyant. People were they were sort of like dream characters, where they didn't fully have the individuality that we have. Like, they basically didn't have that mantra going of, I'm a person, I'm this person, I need to do these things, this is my life. That sort of crystallized ego that we have. It was much more diffuse back then, and somewhat herd-like, or like you were much more identity bound into your family and people group. and this has become less and less. And surely there were probably outliers or people who were basically like, quote unquote, born in the wrong age. Like they presented as if they were of another whatever. I think now, or the purpose of this great period since Rome has been in the intellectual frontal lobe aspects, where left-brained bits and thing consciousness, and sort of separating, giving us distance from that semi-intuitive connection to everything, so that we can develop a strong, independent person. I think that's sort of what we've been on the journey of.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, my camera's doing strange things, so I'm just going to restart the camera software. So
okay.
Yeah. We must be over the target, as they say in the conspiracy circles.
Yeah, the archons are displeased. Yeah.
Oh, man. So, yeah. So I really like this kind of view of running two lines or two streams, and a chap I interviewed a couple years back talks about this, running the irrational with the rational. So if you look at shamanism being like, it's almost like the early kind of ability to of empathetic resonance with animals, so that you can basically in the tradition of Hermetics that I practice, which is sort of leans into this sort of Franz Barden type framework, where you basically learn to become elementally aware at the realm of the mind, or the mental body, the spirit, the soul, the emotional body, and the physical vital body. And then you learn how to exercise those this tetrapolar muscle basically at each level of reality. Doing this with animals first. I mean, if you think about it, right, an animal can sometimes contain the qualities at a very basic level of that humans do. Did we get the qualities from the animals, or the behaviors and the patterns of the animals, or was it another way around? Okay, let's just try. I don't know why it's not working. Sorry, everyone. You'll have to look at this blank picture for a moment while my computer tries to figure itself out. But yeah, so this idea that getting to know reality through the immediate environment, so that we can learn from it at a level that our intellect can't quite work out. But sometimes the most robust structures happen from beneath our immediate conscious awareness. They build in the background, they build from underneath, and they may not be as sexy and fun as cool. They say that if you're going to, build a hot rod, you should start from the underneath the car first before you put a big engine in it and put a coat of paint on it. It's like, build a good chassis, put some good brakes and some good wheels and things on it, right? And so, when it comes to this kind of I kind of like this term of like Hermetic shamanism, where you see the approach as having value because it makes sense to you. But you're also not robbing yourself of this organic growth. That's not, because like you said, there's this thing to make everything scientific and understand it straight out of the gate before you do anything, and you're kind of robbing yourself of this opportunity to have this experience of just letting go a little bit. Because I think as we get into a systems thinking heavy world, those create constraints, and that creates constraints in the psyche and the levels of reality that that these bodies that we have. And it just starts to, I wish you could see my hands right now because I'm doing all these gestures, but essentially, hang on, I'll see if I can rig up another camera. So you go for it, bro, if you want to talk.
That little thing on the bottom is this camera. If your camera messed up, do you have to reselect it down there? I don't know if that would.
Yeah, we'll try that. I'm using a camera software. Using a camera software. Thanks everyone for sticking around and technical difficulties. Let's try this. Okay.
Does Barden's system move from the elements to the planets and then the zodiac? I'm trying to remember which. I think it's Western Magic that has this system, but I can't remember. Where it's basically you have the first grade of mastering the elemental energies, and then you move up to basically communion with planets, and then you're working with the zodiac directly, basically trying to stand over the zodiac and not be conditioned, not as you're going through all of these processes, you're learning to stand over them, like to not be passively influenced, but to have some sort of cooperative relationship with the elements, planets, the zodiac. I'm just not sure if Barden had that or not.
Yes, so I'm just going to plug in another camera because this one just don't want to play nice, so I'm not sure why. Let's put this fella up here. Sorry, I probably won't look as good, everybody, but thank you for sticking with us. I'll have to get my makeup person to sort me out here. Let's see if this will work. Oh, is it going to be long enough? Let's see if we can run it down through here. Yeah, so basically, yes, that's exactly what it is. So there's a way of creating your sympathetic resonance with these seemingly external forces to basically tune the body and the mind and the various layers of your reality with these forces, so that you're basically liberating yourself from these influences. Okay. Let's see here. Can I bring this over so it's not going to be on the, okay. All right, let's try this out. Man, this thing just doesn't want to pick me up. That's so funny. Let's try this. Hang on, I'll just turn it off and we'll turn it on again. No. It looks like the gods don't want to grace everyone with my features today, so you're going to have to get a placeholder image of me. So okay. so be it. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe this is the lesson of Narcissus. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, as far as Barden's system goes, I mean, I'd love to actually just share us. If I go the key, I'll just bring this up on the screen so you guys can see it. But exactly what you said. So there's a way that, because Barden's system is not ritual based. It is what we call if we use the hashtag hermetics. It's there's no relying on external deity to sort of facilitate these things. You can have someone do something for you, or you can do it yourself. It's like the difference between being sort of self-taught and getting someone to show you how to do something. So if I bring up if I can bring this up here, let's see, images. Where's a good image? Okay. Oh, here we go. Let's bring this up, open a new tab, and I'll just share a screen here. Window. Okay. So basically, you can see this mandala here. Okay, and you can see that in the center of the mandala. This is from the cover of the Key to the True Kabbalah. Is this a better one? No, that's not a better one. Okay, so basically what you have in the middle of is you have the akasha, or the spawn point, okay, which is this, and so we have a circle and we have a square. So basically the science of the Hermetic process is to square the circle. and that is to bring down seemingly to connect with these forces. And so what happens is that we work with them. Now, in this process here, there's 3 books in the series, and they're all based on the tarot cards, but probably not in the most popular traditional sense. But essentially, what we do is that we first work with the 4 elements in the first book called Initiation into Hermetics. We develop basic clairaudient, sentient, clairvoyant skills, clairaudient, clairsentient. And then there's also taste and smell as well. But we work with our existing skills rather than pulling on using deity to help us connect with these forces, which is probably more, and using symbols and sigils and things, which can be used maybe a bit later. This is about going, okay, this is principle based. You have these input sensor capabilities like feeling and smell and sight. How can we train these to perceive these elemental qualities? So, without going to a big long discourse, because I'm here for a discussion, essentially we start with the elemental level, and then we move to the planetary level, then we move to the zodiac, then we move to the Sephiroth, and then that's the path of enlightenment, and then the path of manifestation. We move back down again, and it's a long process. But in this third book, there are these things called the letters, the 27 letters of Bardin's Kabbalah, which is they're basically sounds, these elemental forces, which the sub-elements. So you have the mother letters in the Sefer Yetzirah, the 3 mother letters, which is fire, air, and water. But then you also have an earth element. But this is not based, you can find correlations between the Hebrew Kabbalah and Franz Bardin's Kabbalah, which is a Germanic or a Latin alphabet-based Kabbalah. But it's highly experiential. Well, it's not. It's completely experiential in the sense that you don't do ritual every day and then something builds up over time and you have an experience. You aim to use experience as the metric for knowing how your progress is going. So, it's very personal and direct and principle based. If you do Golden Dawn, you're going to be presented with a whole bunch of symbols, sigils, practices, and things that you don't understand the mechanics of, or you find you may struggle to relate to. Whereas this is more based on starting with the senses and cleaning up your life and, introspection and posture. So your physical body has a job, or your vital body, if we call it that. We learn about the bridge, and I'm kind of blessed that I came across a teacher that uses Tai Chi, Qigong, and martial arts. And I'm not a martial artist as such, but essentially there's a point where the energetic phases into the physical, and we refer to this as the fascia or the ligaments and tendons or the elasticity of the body. And once you get into that, then you have that satisfying bridge that gives you an instant connection with the vital force or the life force or the ki or the prana or the chi. You can do this in minutes, and then you've got a rung on the ladder that you can climb up at any given point in time, because you've got a feeling. We use the feeling gate of clairsentience to familiarize ourselves with divinity at the most sort of the level just above physical reality. And so that's the first rung on the ladder. And then this mandala here is the meta system that we climb up. And it's a long process. It's intense. This is, just to learn the 27 letters is about 100 hours per letter. So you learn the mother letters, and then you work on the other 20, the other 23 letters, and they all take time and they all produce different results, and they're going to throw you around if you don't counterbalance them. There's good practices and bad practices. There's best practices, and then there's practices that leave you all over the place. But these things are profound. This book here, Key to the True Kabbalah, when you get to this kicks open some doors that are just incredible. And you cannot underestimate the power of this. And when you read this book and you see all the recipes for how you can help humanity, one reason I like Bardin is that he was a healer. He was a showman. He used to get up and do stage shows to introduce people to these universal divine forces. He would do. He was a healer. He was a he was a teacher. He's actually a worthwhile. He represents an archetype, I think, that's quite useful in a modern day, because he's not an edgy occultist in the same sense as, say, someone like Crowley was.
Yeah.
And so this is highly functional and valuable in my view.
It reminded me a bit of Steiner. Has a similar thing, but he talks about in the same way you're going through the elements, planet, zodiac, you're overcoming these passive forces and sort of putting them under your belt or integrating with them, making the unconscious conscious. Steiner has beings associated, like he has hierarchies of angels, archangels, archai, etc. And these are all they're beings that exist in an entire realm of things that humans pass through, like, say, time or space, or there's beings of emotions that when they move, when you feel an emotion, you're feeling their movements. That this is what those things are. That the all of the internal human perceptions, like the feelings in our body and stuff like this, those are all the effects of beings. And how it's sort of Steiner's process is developing the sense to notice this in order to find out who you actually are. Like, because people assume that they are various things.
Am I back? Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. You're small at the bottom there. Yes, I do see you. Hello.
Wonderful. There's a little bit of a lag, but that's okay. Yeah, sorry, Karen. Oh man, text playing silly buggers. That's all good. Yeah. So there's this recurring theme when we talk about empathetic resonance, where we start to discover how our microcosm relates to the macrocosm, and there's bridges for realizing that and making that a certainty in life, rather than some kind of theoretical mental exercise of like, yeah, I can see how that's plausible, but then it's like, okay, how do we anchor that in an actual experience where we go, wow, there's actually something going on here. And like you said, there's a barrier being installed between us and psi, having experiences of like, it's like I have this great little game I play, and I'll probably set it up as an exercise because I want to put it on Substack because it's my crew. But essentially, like I'll be flicking through my tarot deck, and I'll be like, I'll have a question in my head, and I'll be like, okay. And then I'll be like, okay, what would be a really appropriate card that would relate to that question? I'm not looking for an answer. I'm not looking for finality. I'm looking to nourish my curiosity. Okay. I'm not looking for a hard and fast answer. That doesn't work with me. I want to, answers beget questions. If anything, I want a question to flower, right? And so I'll flick the deck, and then what do you know, I'm thinking of this card, and that's the card that pops out. I'm like going, was that how deterministic is reality? And it's this freaking paradox, and you got to be okay with paradox, because
I'll do that sometimes. I'll open a book, and it's like, oh, you're you're following my thought process. Just the book, the random page I turn to, it basically finishes my thoughts, or it completes them. Like, oh, that's the understanding that you are the world is a very pleasant sort of experience. I mean, I imagine it's somewhat creepy when it starts to recognize that, oh, like, there's no real separation from me and anything that goes on. That sort of synchronistic process that comes about. I think a lot of people can just get sort of scared, or their nervous system doesn't want to deal with it, and they sort of just don't think about it. in I don't know exactly what stage it would be, and that's another thing. All these different models, they're obviously pointing to the same things, but the way they do that is they can have difference. They can have, one tradition may have a better, or they may have focused more time on one element and not on another. This is something I see all the time when reading Kabbalah. I've referred to Sephiroth as Jewish chakras because they function in ways which are so similar. And I don't think we don't need a theory of everything. We don't need to combine all of these systems and make the super system that works for every. I mean, we could do it for fun, I guess, but it's not like we don't have to do this. It won't. We don't need to create another Catholicism, basically Catholic, the universal church. We don't have to do this. It's just moving humanity toward more of fun, I guess, like the mirth is king, sort of like Leela. Like this is a play. We just, things aren't so serious. And I think that belief in scarcity and the seriousness and the, I have one life to live and I have to do everything has to be sort of perfect or whatever people think. These generate lots of pain in the system.
Man, that's beautiful. And you touch on a couple of things there. We'll get to fun because I want to have some fun here, right? Like, hang on, I'm just going to see if I can. Oh, there we go. That's not quite what I'm looking for. Anyway, all right. There we go. That's a bit better. So here's the thing, right? So when you look across all the various traditions, right, you see this masculine, feminine, ones and zeros, magnetic, electric, the him and the her, the plus and the minus. You see, this kind of thing. There's always a this and a that, right? Mm-hmm. So and then there's this union of everything, and it's like going, that didn't want to stay like that. That created a thing to keep it company in a sense, right? That was contrasting, right? But here's the thing, right? So whether you're into Mac or Windows, they are both built from ones and zeros, and they both function within themselves generally, and they can kind of talk to each other, but not really as well. But they both are made from the base system. They're just like almost like a cultural dressing. So you have these principles, and then you have the colorful emanation or the thing that arose to be functional in that environment. So a lot of the cultural dressing that we see of the various systems, they're not directly compatible with other systems. Like you said, I went through the process of I can see how the 7 chakras line up with the 7 layers of the tree of life. And then there's the, how can I make that line up with the 7 days of the week and the 7 dwarves and the 7 keys on the, and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, 7 is the answer. And it's like, well, actually, what about 12? And then it's like 10. No, that's evil. We're not supposed to have 10 fingers. We're supposed to have 12 fingers and all this. And it's just like this big mental gymnastics that doesn't really go anywhere. And it's like these models beget further unique systems, right? Because I've got to say that if this Hermetic fundamentals or foundational metaphysics, which is basically the math that I use to make sense of things, it's also becomes, there's a great meme, and I will have to find it, and it basically says how people view magic, and there's a wizard standing in a circle, and he's got all these incredible things floating around like out of an RPG game or out of some with high-end clairvoyance, and it's like visualization. Looks amazing. And then it's like what magic actually is, and it's basically a picture of the Matrix and the raining Japanese letters, and it's just like, it's just code. And it's like, code's kind of boring until you see what it produces. And that's why I like this kind of to put two ends on a scale. If you've got just sterile metaphysics of the wheelworks of reality without any personality, just numbers and cogs and gears, and then at the other end you've got almost like this fantastical unicorn and rainbow reality of like that's just fantastic, but it's not maybe grounded. But this has got no flavor or color, but this is like bereft of a grounded sense. And then somewhere in the middle, you find this sweet spot of operational functionality and reality, where you're like, you know how to have fun, but you also know how to not hurt yourself, or not tread on the laws in the wrong way, so you don't unnecessarily disadvantage yourself, but you're still having fun. And I think that this is why, like this idea of like they're sort of like I keep referring to it, the sort of shoehorning of diversity in every culture. There's a great episode of South Park called The Goobacks from years ago. I haven't watched it in years. I don't really watch TV nowadays, but basically all these people come back from the future and they're all sort of like bald and they're all the same color and they're all looking for jobs because there's no jobs and there's no differentiation between them because they've all been forced to, well, that's, whatever. And then there was just nothing. There was no contrast of culture, of the way they look or this or that or personality. They're all just the same. It's just this homogenized friggin' like
that's what I've seen. Like that's what the multicultural ideal is. I had a note. Yeah. I don't know if I've made it into an article, but I want to replace that with metaculturalism, which I think is what Hinduism seems to do. Where in India, you like they basically any you can be any religion there. Basically, they don't care. It's just like, oh, you're worshiping this version of Parabrahman. Good, have fun. You're worshiping this variant of the Supreme Self. The Supreme Self decided to show itself in this guise to you. Enjoy, as long as you're not disrupting Dharma, basically, and that's as long as you're doing that, that's fine. Whatever. Getting a sort of like, I think multiculturalism and a one world government are both like the same people are trying to do that, and I think that sort of there is a redeemed sort of that's the shadow of something like metaculturalism and a universal like religio, like not a religion, but like a religio being like the actual process of relating and communal efforts among people. A religion is once that gets sort of calcified into a specific state where it's like it has to be this way. And I think that is problematic because I think religio is a sense, just like morality is a sense. It's like a perceptual, thoughtful process that if you only operate on it through like rules, then it won't, like you're not actually seeing, like if you can only see, like I guess it's like vision by number, like the color by number thing. It's like you're programmed to perceive it in certain ways instead of seeing how it actually is. My sort of foundation of everything is perception. Where it's like if you just raise perception, things start going well, or perception, intelligence, Shakti, the life force of a person. If you can just lift that, then everything else sort of rises on that tide. And I guess I found that through reverse engineering what they see, what seems to be attacked, like what do these big groups seem to want to get rid of the most, or what are they afraid of the most? And it's like, well, love, peace, order, things going well without having to, command it. It seems that, we'll make up problems if there aren't any so that we can solve them, so that we can, make a business out of it, all things like this. And that's not, and you'll find that or people have that sort of spirit internally where it's like they're making up problems in themselves to solve the problem. And they're stuck at this level of I guess they're stuck in a layer of karma, where their karma keeps planting seeds and then they uplift them, but they never clear the roots out. They're not, they're not really, they're not making meaningful growth. They're just in a lesser samsara. Maybe similar, or maybe you could think of it in a way that they're embedded in a chakra, a lesser samsara, a little wheel of their existence, and they can't find the out to go to the higher one. So they're just revolving in one stationary circuit, and they're not able to get to another circuit and another circuit. And this seems to be what all the magical traditions are about, of finding where you're stuck, getting a lay of the land, and then moving on. And that seems to be, it's constantly about moving on, letting go, giving up, and trust, faith, all these things that are made very difficult in the modern world, where we don't trust people or systems. We have low trust societies. We have the flow of information of our world leaders, our news and politics, everything. It just creates a very noisy system.
Yeah, so this we can adopt this. There's an opportunity to adopt a constant state of release within ourselves, and so that it's like you eat something, and then the stuff that your body needs, it will grab onto, and the rest gets left out. Right? It's the same every layer of our body, of our reality, whether it's the mental layer, the emotional layer, or the physical layer, has essentially a type of nutrition that it needs to keep it alive. And if we look at it at purely informational, like food has information, like there's emotional information, there's mental information, and so forth. You absorb what is useful and you discard the rest. And that old chestnut. And then there's some that added one to that, which is, what is it? Absorb what is useful, discard the classical mess, and no way as way. And so you are essentially living this kind of, you're somehow staying grounded in a very ungrounded way. You're not, you're not developing an unhealthy affinity with structure. And I think that's like I was, there's a guy who's just come on to Substack, and I've had him on my other channel as well. His name's Dr. Peter Duchemin, and he's really into, like, he's a tarot guy, awesome tarot, like super intelligent, but he's also a calendar guy, right? Now, so I don't think people realize, like, these systems that we live by, whether it's days of the week, like I tell you what, when I talk to people in the local neighborhood and say, hey, do you know that the 7 days of the week are based on the 7 celestial bodies, right? That the 7 classical ones, and that the word day is actually belongs to deity, right? I mean, how many Christians who are using a deck of playing cards realize they're actually playing with an offspring of the tarot deck? That you're aligning, you can't help but you're being aligned to forces that maybe actually, that you're happily and unwittingly aligning yourself with forces that actually rub up against your belief system. And so you've got this constant force, like you've got this unconscious tension present in your life that you're not resolving. And so there's so much we can talk about, but there's this state of hypervigilance that's ever present, especially in the digital world, where everyone's trying to hack your stuff, and it's like this rising tide that's just ever slowly, like you're always like, what happened with the lockdowns all them years ago? Did they ever finish? Will the trauma ever not be present, where everyone's a potential threat now? Like, everyone could be a potential threat. That has been highly reinforced. Now the animals are a threat. The planet's a threat. Everything's a threat. It's not something that we can learn to.
It's not just like digital hack. I mean, they've been hacking your soul, like the sort of war in heaven sort of thing has been going on forever. And that's sort of many people are getting on board with the like digital security or things which are tangible and make sense to them, and how to defend this, how to not get absorbed into disinformation, things like this. But people have this amusing ability to not do that for their deepest held things. It's sort of like that. It can't be it can't be this, it can't be my wife cheating on me, or it can't be I understand it happens to other people in other realms, but it can't be in this thing that I built my identity around. And all of yoga is basically, every tradition seems to be like, no, you'll have to kill that too. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're like every single Buddha on the road. Like, you got to get every single one that comes up, you kill it. There's nobody left in the end. It's just, the path of yoga is to realize you are God and to be alone. It's not a depressing, it's not loneliness. It's that the recognition that this is one being, like one movement. There's lots of sticking points in that. They have the granthis, which are knots. So you have the 3 granthis are like knots along your spine of certain places you're stuck. Like I think the last one is right at the back of your Ajna chakra, where you still want to, you're obsessed with siddhis, so spiritual powers, and you want to help people. So it's like the belief that there are other people is one of the awareness limitations that you'll have to overcome. And that's sort of that's why many people get into renunciates who like really leave the world. They go off to just be completely alone because they're trying to contend with this final reality of it's just me. Like the end of spiritual practice is alone, which is, it's sort of I don't know what more to say about that. What do you feel about that? Or do you have any pushback on there being one being, sort of Advaita sort of way of thinking?
I don't have any kids, right? But I have watched children grow. I've watched my nieces and nephews grow. I've got friends up the road who've got kids. The delight in seeing kids explore, discover, it's just, man, the transformation. If I can break off a piece of myself and let it start from tabula rasa and start again, and then watch the delight. I was doing this Kabbalah study through this CAB-U online. It's a whatever, but basically talks about like the God created creatures to fill them with delight. And there's a pleasure in watching transformation and discovery and wonder and enchantment and the creative potential that those forces can unleash, but you get to the point where it's like, wow, okay, and reincarnation's a thing. There are layers of reality. There isn't, there's this incredible hierarchy. There's thousands of gods. There's all of these. It's like, wow, this universe is incredible. Why did I pick this really hard place to live? Like, there's some of the best things you can witness and some of the absolute worst things you can witness. And divinity is represented in its highest and its lowest form as possible here in the physical kingdom. But people who go back up and reabsorb, absorb themselves back into the ultimate oneness. Like if everything becomes predictable, it's like, well, where's the fun? Where's the unpredictability? Right? Where's the opportunity to discover new things, to be surprised? Does that ever end?
Well, I suppose that
become an autonomous spiritual robot?
Well, no, I don't know if I see it like that, but I have often thought, like, is God surprised? My I've made up a symbol that I sort of use as a sigil now, where it's a question mark cross. Is that everything is just it's just the sort of as reference to the mysteries, like at a certain point there's nothing. I don't even know if it's at a certain point. It's always been a mystery. It's an ever unfolding mystery, and there seems to be no end to it. So it's just at a certain point of seeking, you realize there's no end to this, and then the path itself is the fun, and then it sort of, you ease up a little bit, because it's like, I don't have to rush. There's nowhere to go.
Take a breath, man. Just relax and enjoy the ride. You know what I'm saying?
I have seen the Kabbalist sort of world of stained glass fragments model of the god sort of shattering itself to become us. I don't know if maybe they already have this inherent to the system, but I don't see God as having done something or changing or facing any sort of limitation in that way. My God, or the I try very hard not to cast an image of it, but it's when trying to explain it, there's little images as pointers you have to make. It is reality itself. So it's like there's nothing external to it, and it does not have to do. It's sort of like Wu Wei, like it does not. It's in a continue, like we are its, or there is no being that is not its being. I do think there are problems with traditions that want to like go, like they want to abandon the world to become to merge back into that, basically to reach that sort of nirvana blown out state where they're just, I guess, where it's like, I don't want to participate. I'm not part of that tradition. Or I don't align with it. I'm much more of the worldly enjoyment. I mean, Tantra is just part of Tantra. You want to be here doing stuff, but you want here to become more fun, to be like more enjoyable.
Yes.
You're not trying to leave.
Yes.
You're just trying to saturate it with, ink, with art, with trying to swell up the paper with more stuff, while avoiding hedonism. And I think the Indian gunas, they have elements, and then they also have gunas. The gunas are tamas, rajas, and sattva. So it's like rajas is the active state, sort of held in the middle, and then tamas is depression. I sort of see it as like oil, or a very inertial gravitational state, and sattva is a monastic monk is sattvic. They're vegetarian often. They're not restless. They're calm and meditating all the time, like a monk would. The tamasic are sort of the inversion of that, where they're not moving very much, but they're not meditative. They're just sort of depressed and sort of lethargic. And then rajas is that fine line in between of I'm not falling into hedonist, basically like opium den, just saturation in the world, nor am I completely blissed out all the time in sort of ecstatic visions of or ecstatic peace. I'm not so equanimous that I don't feel any need to get up. Rajas is sort of that state at which you can move. And they use lots of they sort of assign attributions or different avatars, different incarnations of different deities are shown to present different temperaments in this way, as sort of like they become like a symbol of a principle. They call principle tattva. So you have like the The most common, perhaps most useful, is the Guru Tattva. So Guru, everyone knows Guru, but it just means light bringer. The word Guru means light bringer. So the principle of that, which anyone can connect to, anytime you had an insight that leads you toward the right thing, your little inner guru, the little inner teacher that tugs you along like that little the thread in the labyrinth, that itself is sort of however you go about finding that thread that actually points you like a compass toward the right thing. That's the most practically advantageous thing. And there's multiple systems which can get you there, multiple things you can do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly know what I was wanting to build up with that, but maybe we can jump.
That's perfect, brother. That stream of expression was absolutely perfect. I say to people, show me where God is not, right? So we're talking about this reality. Like the universe is made of living mind. Our perceivable universe is this substrate, stratas of substrate that go down to depths beyond. But this idea of bringing joy into the world, making the place more fun, because I think that if we don't have that, what are we here? What are we doing here? Like there's work that needs to be done, right? We've got to build the world and make it so that make it so that we get because survival is the baseline, man. But then all of the beautiful art that has inspired people in architecture and song and food, man, how about that, right? Food and man, video games, the best video games, the ones that
all
just
the things
like, man, what a piece of art.
All the things we're surviving for. It's like you want to survive, exactly. But then why? What? Like, yeah. And then we seem to try and ban and all the reasons to survive. It's like make that illegal. Don't do that. Just like, or not necessarily. I mean, some governments do ban fun things, but we have taboos over just joy and like the way a child has joy. Like we have all these odd patterns that we have to follow that somehow mean we're adult or refined or something. And then you see like a Zen master or something and they're just a child, and it's just like it's like you don't know it yet, but I've done more. I got to where you want to be and you don't know it yet. Do you want to come along or not? And that's sort of that is the master.
Yeah, I love that. Like I get simple pleasure. I was sitting in a park yesterday watching a bunch of ducks and birds and pigeons. And that for me was just the best time. The sun was out. It's pretty cold here at the moment. And so I'm doing some kind of active meditation, if you will, of a sort. So I'm just sitting there and watching these ducks, and there's character, there's personality, and then I'm watching some kids run around and just have fun. And I'm like going, maybe it's the stage of life that I'm in, because, I'm nearly 50 and I'm like going, the things that bring me joy, I'm quite happy with simple things. I like immersive worlds. I love incredible. Like I've got a friend who's a game developer and he's very good. Like he's in top tier, and I've seen what's involved firsthand, and I really don't have a lot of experience with it. But the amount of effort that goes into making a polished item for a video game is like, it's probably been easier than ever, but my gosh, the amount of consideration and wide range of skills that go into, if you're just like a 1 or 2 man team, like what goes into a craft, something that you enjoy. Like when I tell people, like when I've made, videos with reasonable production, I'm doing one this weekend. I'm doing a live stream with a reasonable level of production this weekend. When I tell people what's involved in, like, when I play a song for them, or when I write a song, or when I make a thing, and I go, this, you know, there was this, and this. I'd learn all these skills. I go, oh wow, I didn't realize there was that much involved. Suddenly they have a heightened level of appreciation for the craft. And I think that's where, when you start driving out subtlety and nuance and attention to detail, things become forgettable. And there's so much beauty, and there's so many forgotten masterpieces for consideration. Now, just before we carry on with this stream of thought, I want to say that we're just about to hit the 90-minute mark, but I am more than happy to stick around and talk, because this is a wonderful conversation. I just wanted to check in with my guest to see you're going to stick around for a bit longer, brother?
Yep. I'm good. We can go.
Perfect. Okay. So, but what I was going to say is, I want to say thanks to everyone who's joining us on the live stream here. I just want to say, how about we just take a quick like a 2-minute break? I'm just going to go and grab or make it a 5 minutes, so I can grab another cup of tea and go for a quick stretch. But yeah, we'll meet back here in 5. I'll set the timer if that's cool. If that's cool with the guest, and I will see you here again in 5 minutes.
See ya.
Hi, everyone. All
There you
right. Let's see. So while we're here, thank you everyone for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you all here. I'm super grateful. With and we're just we're talking about all sorts of things here. Now, I didn't label the original podcast name as "Saving the World" because I thought that was clickbaity and audacious and ridiculous to the point where it just covers so many things. But it's almost like I'm having some fun, and I think that making sort of like, because there are serious considerations here, but there's a lot of ground to cover. And back to this thing of like, how can we bring more light and joy and levity and into the world? Okay, well, there's some things that we need to be aware of, because there's things that we may be participating in that are essentially robbing us of a much more heightened experience. And it's okay to be real about these things. We've all got an opinion on what might be making our immediate environment less enjoyable than what it could be. But something that's really become quite obvious to me, especially being a music teacher in my earlier days, and now being a meditation teacher and doing things with Qigong and Tai Chi and Hermetics that are just so cool. Like, they are cool, man. They're so cool. Is like, I love seeing other people getting excited. I love seeing, I get excited to see the potential in others without being an idea hamster of like, oh, you should do this because I see you can do a thing. It's like, yeah, just because I like collecting stamps doesn't mean I want to start a business on it. Or, I'm not a stamp collector, but you know what I'm saying, right? Just because I can do a thing doesn't mean I'm going to devote all this energy to it. But to highlight the genius in others that they sometimes can't see for themselves. Okay. Because that's the one thing you can't get from yourself, is that view from another, is that external perspective of someone who cares about you. Bro, did you know that you're really good at this? And you might be like, really? And I'm like, I didn't realize that. Thank you for pointing that out. You know what? And I needed to hear it from you, because if somebody else had said it, I might not have believed them, or I just think they were being silly. And that's why, relationships with people where you can let your guard down a little bit, and knowing, this almost comes back to values, shared values and things, right? With people that you have certain shared values with, there's a relax that you can be at peace with some people. Like for me, when I'm speaking on YouTube, you're getting a much more curated version of my personality, because it's a self-censorship platform. Let's be real about it. I don't want to get kicked off YouTube. But on here, I just feel like I can be a bit more of myself, to be honest, and the guests that we talk about, we know that there's some kind of there's a bunch of weird, creepy, strange, bad people running the planet. Essentially, that's my view anyway. There's a management that runs this planet, and they think they might be doing the right thing, but we also know there's a bunch. I mean, it's not exactly a secret now. We don't have to dwell on it and get all dark and gloomy about it, but I can have a much more wider expression format on here, and this brings me a sense of peace. But anyway, this isn't about me. This is a collective discussion. I'm grateful to have Darian here. Darian, give us some wisdom, brother. Give us some hot wisdom. What do you got?
Yeah. I get, because I've been studying education for a while. One of the things I want to do is basically revamp. In efforts toward that mutual value construct where people feel safe enough to be themselves all the time. Like, that's sort of the end goal would be that, where it's like not only in the face of like their government, but with their parents, with their family, with their children, whatever, across various tribal boundaries. It shouldn't really. I feel like humans should grow up out of that. And I've sort of come to see a guild system forming in my head, sort of a decentralized network of. I guess it would be similar to how colleges are supposed to work, where it's a center of learning, of community networking. A university works very much the same as a church or a large sort of monastic center. It's just, devoted toward different things. Having places like this, which are good faith actors, where they're not trying to, their business model is not to get, they're not a business model, I guess would be the way to say it, where it's like they're not trying to get a bunch of money from the people, and that is their main concern, which seems to be how everything works. Everything is economics first, and then we'll think about it. That's sort of how it goes. Even though economics is a very floaty, weird science where it's like we make up money. It's not really backed on anything. People print it to be able to do whatever they want, and then they claim that we're out of it when it's convenient. And it's all just a bizarre. It's a bizarre game of getting people to do what you want.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's enough people now, and we have technology like the internet to be able to talk, like competent people can talk to each other and be like, hey, they're just screwing people over. We don't have to do this. I suppose the only worry I have is like if they eventually begin. I'm not sure how powerful the powers that be are, or how competent they are, or whatever else. Like, would they basically do what the CIA does to developing countries? Is that what I know they do this, but I don't know if now we have the ability to do so much of it that there's really nothing they can target or focus on. My last post, it was. I tend to have there's a string of perhaps violent words in some of the things that I write. Sometimes I don't talk like that really, but when I'm writing, sometimes it's like a militant resistance against. Well, I guess not even a resistance against, because it is a protective energy. It's like, I just want to be myself. I want other people to be able to be themselves. And it's like, well, let's just, do anything we can to make sure that happens. It makes me think of like a network of like how terrorist cells work. Of course, we wouldn't be doing that, but for the purpose of like enlightenment and education and therapy and whatever else you would do at such a place, being actually able to do that, and having centers set up all around the world who, it's not our center. Maybe they just follow our template, or they enjoy, or they want to do it their own spin of it. Getting these reputation hubs going, which again makes me think of a guild. It's like you have people competent in certain arenas. They set up shop here. Perhaps they live here. You can apprentice with them. You can, perhaps you have something to teach them, and they, you can trade knowledge against each other to for mutual benefit, with the hope that eventually this sort of moves to become a government replacement, because that is, I guess, my one of my big end goals is to replace systems of government. Not so much the people. The systems itself is what I'm more concerned with, because it's just a dead agency that does it's an egregore that has human people socketed into positions within it in order to fulfill a function at scale. But none of those individuals are really considered in how things are happening. So it's not like one person in the bureaucratic Leviathan is actually like, they're not exerting their will, and they're not, voicing their concerns and whatever, and they're not aware of the process. It's designed deliberately on a need to know basis so that no one involved has any control over it, so that it can serve the whim of whoever designed it. And then, what if old systems like this, you have an old egregore structure, government, designed by certain people, and then those people die, and then they pass that on to another group of people. Maybe they use the system for the same end, maybe they don't, maybe they modify the system, but the system itself, the sort of art of kings, understanding how civilization scale systems work, that science does not get distributed into the common populace. Like normal people don't get to see the workings of, the universe. The elite have sort of ascribed themselves to be a watcher class, and then they trade these inner secrets among themselves through generations. And maybe you rise up into that. Maybe the right people. You're not part of their like bloodline or something. You just get involved, and then you're associated with them. You're understanding. You're maneuvering the systems. But I do think every person should be aware of how complex systems operate, how not to be screwed over by governments or religions, or even petty family or small, like within the realm of a church, like how to not be scapegoated, how to understand how social patterns operate. That's very important to me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Far out. Where do we start with all this? Okay. So, I think one of the something to consider is this idea of cause and effect. You do a thing and then something happens, right? And can you negatively impact? Like if you're a spirit here having a physical experience to learn, right? If this is a school, if this is a place where learning happens, is this a common sort of like tenet across traditions? Is that like it is incarnating here? There's this. We could go into that, but okay, let's just say that reincarnation. Let's just set that as the premise, right? So you're going to come back, right? And so every morning the sun comes up and the sun goes down, the moon comes up, and there's these cycles that we can witness, and they generally govern our physical body responses and our mental and emotional body. There's all these cycles that are that are given. They're going to happen regardless of whatever you do, right? There's reliable, predictable cycles that you can work against. You can go against the current, or you can just go for the ride on. There's social currents, all these types of things. Great. Okay. So, if you are a spirit who's in a physical body and you're here to take lessons away with you, so you can, when you go back up top and you're up there with your soul family or your soul tribe, going, okay, I want to reincarnate as a one-legged this kind of person in this particular geographic location, and I need some friends and I need a villain, and one of your soul buddies says, I'll be the villain. And you're basically setting up a lived experience. Oh, my camera switched off. What's going on here? And so you're here to learn, right? Okay, well, first of all, okay, you're gonna be born into a situation, generally speaking, that is, you're highly impressionable. You're going to be influenced by your immediate surroundings. There's forces that you will be conscious of and forces that you won't be unconscious of, and they're all driving your decision making and the way you see the world and how you determine what is right and what is wrong. And your parents are going to show you how to survive, because if they're going to be getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to change your butt, they at least want you to do something with your life, maybe, right? If I'm going to go through all this, I might as well, and when you're old and rich, we want to try and make it so that when I'm old, you can pay someone to wipe my butt for me. You don't have to do it, but at least be able to pay someone, whatever. But I kind of think that at this point on the planet, this idea of I have a view of government. Like, I kind of think it's just like a less shittier version of the divine right of kings, where you have some kind of basically a control system, blanket control system that serves a particular thing. You have these people who have this ability to write whatever they want on a piece of paper, and everyone has to follow suit. It's like, hey, we made a thing and you have to do what we said, otherwise we're going to send the heavies around. So there's a desire for continuity of a structure that serves a particular group. And I mean, look, I've gone into this on some other podcasts with peeps, and I don't want to dwell on it, but I kind of see government nowadays as this kind of deranged monument to our lack of imagination. It's like this cruel sort of parent that's an adult that's supposed to be responsible for us, but has lost their way. And I don't know, when you look at Romans 13, and you can, I mean, look, this is the other one too, is that there are two books in here. Okay. One apparently validates the other. Okay. Right. The one bunch of people said, hey, we made this thing and we're going to follow it. And a bunch of books got left out of that one too. And then another group says, hey, we've got another version that we're going to add to this, and we're going to slap it on. It's like me writing a new thesaurus or something and then saying to Webster's, I'm just going to use your dictionary, and that's going to validate it, right? And is this a completely infallible document as far as ethics, morals, principles, conducts, and values go? Is this, okay, here's a question for the chat. Now, I know you've got to be a paid member. Is this an infallible document? Does this not include any political insertion designed to drive society thinking in a certain way? Would you be prepared to critique this book? Everyone's got a good opinion on it. I don't want to dwell there. I'm just putting that out there. It's got a lot of value in it, and there's layers to it, absolutely. But here's the thing. Do what government says regardless. That doesn't make any damn sense to me. Then people say, oh, I shouldn't take it that seriously. And it's like, well, hang on. Where does this start and finish, right? So here we go. What's the ultimate game here? Someone said to me once, there's a great guy, I don't know if you've ever come across Mark Passio from What on Earth is Happening. He's a pretty spicy dude from Pennsylvania. He's an ex-priest of Satan, apparently. He's one of the hardest hitting dudes I've come across. But he's worth checking out, man. He is highly knowledgeable. He is worth your time. If you're an esoteric person, he brings things down to the level, right? But basically he's saying, what is a right? Yeah. A right is something you can do that doesn't harm another person. Okay. That's all that needs to be said. Really, if you get in the way of someone else's free will, as long as they're not hurting another person. I mean, if they want to drink rat poison and jump off a cliff, that's unfortunate. We're going to try and talk them out of it, right? But essentially that is their right. But if they're hurting someone else or stopping someone else from doing something. And so when I had a friend who was an ex-police officer, she was in there for 8 years, and she said to me, I had to stop doing that because we were basically interfering with people's right to live. Oh, now I found that interesting. Okay. Now I Substack does have some community guidelines, and I I'm sure we've all got it. We're all on the list if we're talking about these kinds of things. But, as far as how move forward and how to create something better, this is where it's at, right? We don't have to try and, if we stripped out the current system that supports society, it would just turn to chaos, I think. Because people are so, like Morpheus says, they're so inured by the system. It's like somebody was talking about the end of the Soviet Union. People were still in this, they still believed it was legitimate and all this kind of thing. They just were so conditioned to think a certain way, that you took away their stability, we're going to have to sort of bring in new ideas and permission slips for people to consider that there may be other ways of doing things that are completely legitimate. And I think that one of those things, it's going to have some kind of, for lack of a better term, spiritual platform that it's built upon. And because as soon as we go atheist and materialistic, it's like maybe can give those people information to help them to see that, you know, their decisions matter. Because as soon as you bring in moral relativism, okay, and we're talking about, you know, these kinds of things where it doesn't matter, you know, anything goes, it's like things start to break down. And what you do, what you say, when your thoughts, feelings, actions, speech matter. And we have to find ways of making that evidence-based. And I think that's where the real challenge lies. Now, I've spoken enough, but I want to say we can get up to a lot of benevolent mischief while we're here, and we can have a lot of fun. We can bring aliveness back into the world. We can use creativity. Don't ever let the comedians be taken away, even if they're politically aligned, because if we stop laughing, I think we're screwed. And we're just going to go through another cycle of BS that we don't really want. We can avoid that.
Well, I've been writing a book about, I guess, apocalypse. I've been enjoying the term apocalypse, not the eschaton. That is, I consider that a different thing. The apocalypse has nothing to do with the end of the world. Apocalypse is revelation. So it's
the removing of the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very pro apocalypse, but you know, removing the veil, that is the point. Setting up institutions that, I mean, in the sense of government or any institutions we have, they should purely be there to, you know, defend from veiling of consciousness, or basically veiling deception from the people. They seem to be the exact opposite of this. If I don't know if this is something that's true or just something I do, but whenever I see a negative thing, I immediately see I basically see its shadow. So if it's a bad thing, I see the good thing of it. I see a good thing, I see the bad thing of it. Like, they appear to me at the same time. So whenever you know, corrupt government agency, or you know, the Medicare system, medical systems, education, whatever else, it's like, oh, I see the quote unquote divine template that this could be constructed in, and I know that it's not. Do the people who made it, do they know it's not, or are they so deluded that they actually think this is good? Because I do think morality comes from aesthetics. If it comes from perception, there is a right perception that makes something good, true, beautiful. And I do believe that this ability to see truth, goodness, and beauty, and to align with it, that is something that can be done. You actually can. It's not like I mean, it's the same way you raise a child. In essence, you provide examples. You benefit those who align with Dharma. You can use Dharma. I've been trying to make a Western equivalent to Dharma, but it's also coated in a government system, because I think how we as Westerners think is different than how the ancient Indians did, or ancients did in general. And so there are just some changes in my terminology to not make it just a direct rip of Dharma and trying to implant that into Western reality. I've come up with the term holarchy, which just means whole rule. So it's Dharma. It's basically Dharma, but because I was thinking for a long time, when I thought more about, or when I was more focused on politics, it's like I guess I would align most to something like monarchy. I guess that's what it feels like. but then with that monarchy, I would establish anarchy. Like my sole purpose, as like if there were a monarchic power, it would be to allow everyone to do whatever they want, and then just not. It's sort of like the God creates the world and then steps back sort of thing. It's like that's what this should be. That's how the world should work. But then within that free system, little empires build, and then those get too ambitious, and then they try to pretend that they are God, basically, or they not that they are God. I think they may have at one point done this. Now we have new terms, and we just become a world power, a U.S., a Russia, China, where they have this. They want, I suppose, they want their narrative to win, but they're very. I don't think there are any good world powers or like large scale powers where they're actually like, no, we will actually defend the sovereign right of individuals to not be oppressed by narrative engineering and whatever else. I don't see that as the reality. Even in India, which I do think they would be a great place to start. Sort of, they still have the process needed of deconditioning from their colonized period. They need to shed some of that they still have, and find some sort of government system which is dharmic or follows the way, where it is essentially negentropic, where it is not a high entropy system. Same reason they worship cows, because cows just give freely. They're beautiful, free giving things. I think they would be a great place to they'd be faster to get a nation founded on principles like that, because I believe they had been several times in the past in ancient history of good government, of great government, but they did have kings. They're where we get the image of the crown from. But a king was not just like some arbitrarily appointed person. A king was like you got the crown because they had the Sahasrar working. They were basically like enlightened. They were the substrate of their culture was so rich that all people knew that there were these, that they had to do yoga. It's not like something you get to choose. It's like yoga is something that you must do. It is in accordance with Dharma. I must do this. Similar. I'll often sort of conflate Tao and Dharma, because they're not one to one, but they're, if you're pursuing or attempting to follow the way, Dharma, Tao, they're all very similar. Pathless path. And then people today are like, no, but I want to know which path. And it's like, you're not getting the point. It's not the way is not a way. It is the way. You can't. So yeah, that's a big. So many people have that mindset where it's like, no, but which one? Like they're not actually able to see the meta of the thing. That is I don't know how to fix that. I would like to do research trials about that to figure how do we get the masses to be capable of seeing, of consciousness, basically of having spiritual experiences or how to give the masses the fruits of yoga, I guess. That should be sort of the core effort of any institution, whether it's healing, whether it's in a hospital situation, whatever else. I have problems with hospitals being these metal box buildings full of electrical equipment. They're you're saturated in Wi-Fi and whatever else. All of these things we don't fully understand. There's like no consecrated space. You know what I mean? Like there's no. I don't know where you went to school, or if you went to like public education or in the States or whatever. But you go to a school, you go to a church, you go to a prison, you go to an office, you go to a hospital. They're the same place. They're all the same place. I don't know how that works, but they're like it's like they're all a temple to Saturn or something. That's what it feels like. There's some bizarre quality that is not so much for the good, or it is a misuse of Saturnian energy entirely to conform and compress into an image that they want. Yeah. So not that. Getting all these spaces to be more diverse in the because it does seem like they took, because I'm thinking about it in lots of different layers all the time. It seems like they took, or they liked Saturn. They picked it out of the pantheon of experiences of planetary and deity expressions. They're like, this one works best for what we want. So you imagine like the Roman conqueror, whoever shadow, whatever black budget government existed in Rome, and they're like, okay, we have within our pantheon Saturn and this sort of this energy here. What if we start focusing more and more on that until people take on the attributes of wanting to be, wanting to have bars around them, wanting to be imprisoned, wanting to be safe, quote unquote. What if we embed in their energy structure the desire to be limited in the way that Saturn does? And you do this over and over, generations, until you get like, I think Protestants and then materialists are the two later, like you see this desire to be caged come out most severely in those two overarching philosophies. Isn't it? I think it's Protestants that have sola scriptura, where it's like, no, the book itself has all we need. We don't need to think. The book says it, and therefore we do it. So it's you've built the boxed in thinking, and then materialist scientism comes in after that. Yeah, I think I think you can sort of observe a steady trend toward that boxing in from Orthodox Christianity up to Protestantism, and then I think that evolves into scientist materialism, scientism. I do sort of see that as a chain of one sort of containment process to box up and be able to ship off and segment humans to fit like cogs in a great machine. They're not really they're not a part of, like, you're not a part of your company in the same way that you once were a part of your community, your neighborhood, things like this. You're much more compartmentalized and refitted to wherever you're useful.
Yeah, some awesome points there. I've made a bunch of notes here. I just want to say that, you're absolutely right. Like, I think it's to the point where, like, we need to have some kind of, well, when I say we, I think the masses would do well to have some kind of benevolent dictator to come in and say, all right, we're just going to loosen a few things here. But, we need to give you some education about, things you should and you shouldn't do. And you already know these things. But because somebody's given you some kind of permission slip to do things that hurt other people, that's not right. You need to grow up. It's time to be adults. Just because you're 30, 40, 50 years old doesn't mean that you don't be an adult. You're just a child. that is, like there's childlike and then there's childish, right? And I think growing up is painful, but it's also like I have another analogy, which is once you start to discover the beauty of the world, it's like you're in this incredible toy store. The adult part is having to choose something, because you can't do everything. You can do anything, as they say, but you can't do everything. You have to choose something. You can't walk out with the whole shop. And it's like going, meaningfulness is somewhat akin and synonymous with depth. There's a substantialness that appears, like the resolution of information. It's not just what's in your sphere of awareness. It's also like there's a lot of things in your current sphere of awareness that can become more valuable with a deeper appreciation and a deeper, like more detailed, you can see more within a familiar thing. And it's like, wow, there's a layer of beauty that I didn't know was there, right? And so when it comes to, did you want to drop in?
No. Go ahead.
Okay, sweet. So okay. Anyway, I'm wandering around here, but what I want to say is that okay. So let's just brush over anarchy. Okay, so all anarchy means is lack of a ruler. It doesn't mean Hollywood version of Sex Pistols thing. It just means anarchy, absence of a ruler. That's it.
And
monarchy.
Modern anarchists, they draw the A. Now, you're supposed to draw the A in the circle. They always draw it outside of the circle. So anarchists don't know, like from the artist's position. Like you know what I'm talking about, the depiction of the anarchist A, like when they graffiti it on they have the A coming out of the circle, and it's like, no, it's supposed to be within the circle to depict that with anarchy there is order without need for rule. So it's not coming out of it's not spilling out of the circle. The circle is that holistic, kumbaya thing. It's just you can see the punk desire to do harm just sort of coming out in just that subtle refusal to put it in the lines.
So this is the thing is, right? And thank you for mentioning that. That's beautiful. Great info, because we may unconsciously be creating symbols that are hurting us and reinforcing them. And, language changes over time. Etymology, or the study of words and where they come from, the root meanings of words, is a very empowering process. So here's one for you. Internal monarchy, external anarchy. I am the ruler. Or you can have external monarchy or internal anarchy. Okay. Who is the ruler of your existence? Are you sovereign? What does that mean to you? These kinds of things. The anarchists would do well to study the esoteric world, and the esoteric world would do well to study the anarchist world. These kinds of things. There's missing pieces of the parcels here. It's like, but then there's this idea of voluntarism. Okay, where it's like somebody comes to you and says, hey, how would you like to pay, and we'll look after the roads and the parks and make sure that the playgrounds are all looked after. It's like, yeah, that sounds good, I'll chip in for that. No, you will do this, or we're going to send the heavies around. Okay, no, bro, I'm not down with that. Okay, I'll support something that I see as beneficial, because I use this example. I love using extremes on scales, and we can do this on Substack. Okay, what you might look at a movie like 300 and you see these Spartans and they're all just hyper empowered like individuals where the weak cannot exist in their like sphere, right? That for me is like, yes, they are all following leader and all that, but out in the world, these people would be, they would get stuff done, and they have no fear and this kind of thing. There is still a little bit of that unquestioning follower in them, right? But the idea is like, imagine if everyone was an empowered individual. Imagine like the village comes together when something needs to be done. The men come together and go, right, we need to go and do a job. And the women, they come together and go, like, we need to do a thing or something like this. It's like everyone understands strengths and the roles. And so I've been watching this television show recently called Yellowstone. Okay. Some of you may be aware of that. Okay. Now, there's a couple of prequels, and one of them's got Harrison Ford in it. It's called 1885, and it's got Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford, and that's a couple of big banger names right there, right? But Harrison Ford delivers this short monologue, where he says, when our groups of families built our little mini towns, he said, when there was a problem, the families and the groups would come together and we would sort it out. He said, but once the groups got to about 500, then we needed to start having administrations and institutions and things got out of hand. And then people started leveraging their influence within these established institutions. And that's when things went off the rails a bit. And then we had to start looking after our own, and we became more insular. Now I'm paraphrasing and I'm waxing a little bit here and embellishing. But this is the thing is that once these groups start to grow, how do we manage these changes that happen when proportional expansion occurs? So I noticed this when I went from teaching 120 students a week as a guitar teacher to 150, it created a new set of things. It crossed this threshold. And then these new things emerged that I wasn't able to perceive until I'd experienced. Fortunately, we have the internet and our ancestors to look back on and to see how they experienced similar growing pains, if you will. So now the other one I wanted to touch on, packaging is everything. Glamorizing the negative expressions so that to make them more palatable and digestible. That's what a lot of the modern advertising and marketing stuff does, right? Like they're trying to take just bad things and make them sexy. I'm not sure if I'm concerned, but this new Grand Theft Auto 6 game that's coming out, this will be the most expensive game that's ever made. It's essentially a crime simulator for control freaks and people who can't get their way in the real world. So they get to, this was the previous game and essentially this too, right? Now, don't get me wrong. It's fun to have a sand pit, and we live on a sand pit. Problem is that people are struggling to separate reality from fantasy, out in the world. And, they discover their personal power in different ways. And the virtual realm is the new realm in a sense. We have the mental, astral, physical, the strata of spiritual realities down to the physical, and now we've got this new virtual sandpit, or this new virtual theater, essentially, where people are able to simulate reality in a different way and try before they buy. And that brings me back to this next thing, which is like the glimpse that you get of spiritual experiences to go, hey, here's a thing. Now, if you want to take ownership and self-generate, you're going to have to work for it. But a virtual reality takes away the journey of growth while you strive towards something that is meaningful. It presents you with a road towards something. It's like I keep saying, it's a facsimile or a flimsy simulacra of something. The virtual, and this is these layers of reality that can be hijacked. And the solution I'm presenting is that there's an evolutionary potential within the creative process. And so as soon as you just start dominating your activity, your sphere of activity with consumption of other forms of art, that, like I said, Grand Theft Auto, you spend 100 hours in that game, that you can't help but be changed. Video games are a very different landscape to a movie. A movie is an hour and 90, like a 90-minute experience in some cases, unless you watch them back to back. A video game can be 50 hours reinforcing a set of values and principles and not principles, but a set of ideas and concepts that can take. It
also has displaced identity, where in a movie, you're empathizing with people, but they're playing a role, and you have the same thing in video games, but because you are them in a way. You're playing a character.
Oh yes, you're slipping on the suit, aren't you?
Yeah. So you're becoming an actor in a way.
Yeah.
But so this causes a bunch of odd things. I'm not I don't think I'm not part of the video games cause violence crowd or anything, but there are certain things about it which are you can definitely game games to do certain things on populations. It's just sort of which can be very, very good. Like designing games for purpose of one of the things I want to do is, for one, is just educational games, like actual worlds, which are not like necessarily academically educational, but you can contain
Symbolically participatory.
Yeah. Yes. That. And then also another idea I have is moving physical conflict into virtual conflicts instead of having wars. Perhaps we can expand we can refine, expand the arenas of sport competition to negate the actual casualty of it. In the same way we have Olympics. I mean, if you look at wars now, they're not like crimes of passion. they are systemic, long planned, deep systems of wanting something. What do you want? Whether it's land, or you want power, or you want to, I think a lot of wars now are to cause pain. Basically, I think we have lots of wars that started just to cause pain. For some reason, the suffering itself is some end of many of these conflicts, and I don't know why that is. But
they're rituals, bro. They're mass blood
Yes.
rituals.
Yes, and that is something that I would like to negate, because people want to do bad things. Not all people, not all the time, and the degree of badness differs. Or killing people in a Call of Duty game can be enjoyable. Like that's a lot of people enter the military for that same sort of thrill. It's a much higher stakes game, but they want to play with guns. They want to drive tanks. They want to drive aircraft. They want the camaraderie of people around them doing whatever. What they want
Path
is
of the warrior.
Yeah, they want a sufficiently advanced war sport. That's what they want. So if you just give them that, where it's like, here, instead of joining the military, we're now designing virtual reality things which allow you to have the sensory experience of doing this as if you were actually doing it. You're actually connecting with other people, and the same way we have games. Perhaps there are stakes, instead of having an actual war, you have a simulated war. You have all the things made sure that you're not hacking, so that you're, or I guess you'd have to have meta hacks, because in war you're hacking stuff. You're hacking communications and drone and equipment. The tech inside that, you're hacking that. So having a large, expanded, hardened field that it itself can't be hacked, but within which we have this normal play area for people to have competitions instead of war, I think that would make a very generative world, where even you'd still have things like crime or whatever, but you wouldn't have war. And that would be phenomenal. That'd be a phenomenal advancement if we just got rid of war, or we had like a UN sort of like a sort of pact where we don't actually do this anymore. I see that as like a long, that would take quite a while to even have the technology advanced enough for this to be a practical thing. But I do think as science breaks out of the conditioning of materialism, studies consciousness more deeply, we will have essentially shared dream games at some point. I do see this as an eventual sort of thing that may occur, which will it'll basically allow a vent for the negative desires to be transmuted instead of doing what they currently do, expressing themselves in unrefined manner that has high casualty rate and whatever else.
Yeah, so there's a desire to express energy when you feel prompted or inspired to, right? So you know, when you're sitting down, for example, if we carry on with video games, right? So there's a mental participation that goes on. So your mental body or your mind is engaging with, you know, the planning and the plotting and this and that. And there's a certain stimulation that happens there. There's an emotional hook as well, because there's like a satisfaction or a you know, there is some kind of thing happening here. There's a tick box that happens there. Now, each one of these bodies they're all linked to each other, okay? And you know, the mental body is attached to the astral body, attached to the physical body, etc. And then, you know, but like the thing is though is that the one thing I think, like, and this is important too, I think that I don't think pulling the band-aid off and going cold turkey on a lot of these things is the way to sort of like fix society. Some things maybe, but there's a way that we can begin scaling things back and walking things back and bringing things, because some things are just gone. They're just out of control. You know, they're just gone wild. They're good things that have been perverted, hijacked, or infiltrated in a way, and they're just being exploited for all the wrong reasons. And they're not necessarily people with some deep understanding of, you know, they're not like the elite deep dark psychologists that run the planet sort of thing. They're just like people who've gone, hey, I can fulfill certain darknesses within myself through this medium. And you know, what we can do is that we can start just reining things in a bit and just highlight, because I think you're right. You know, it's easy to write things off. I mean, video games are written off forever. It's just a form of art and a form of time occupants that can be used to help you grow or help you or stunt your growth, you know, essentially. Like, I mean, some of those, I love listening. There's a guy on YouTube called Tim Kaine. He's the creator of the original Fallout game. And he talks a lot about, he's been in the industry for like 45 years or whatever it is. And man, this guy is such a generous wealth of knowledge, but he's talking about every aspect of the development process. This is an art form. It allows you to simulate, because I'm talking about role-playing games here, okay? You get to simulate choice making in a controlled environment that won't necessarily impact you in the real life. You get to try things out, you know, before you actually do them. Or you know, there's lots of games now, you got lots of choices. You've got games like Skyrim and The Witcher. I'm playing Mass Effect 3 at the moment. I haven't played any games for ages, and I'm playing Mass Effect 3 and or the Mass Effect series. And it just the beautiful pieces of immersive art with meaningful dialogue. There's a big existential crisis that's bringing everyone together. It's giving them a central focus. Suddenly we're not moaning about the guy that's not mowing his lawn next door. It's like, shit, there's a threat that, you know, it's on everyone's doorstep. We need to work together, as Ronald Reagan said in that famous speech, you know, bring us all together. Existential threat, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think one of the problems too is that there needs to be some education put out there, and this can be woven into the modern mediums of, like, because video games are the biggest entertainment product on the planet. You get bigger than my friend who's the game dev, he's done it, the research, I looked it up. Movies, TV, and music combined are dwarfed by essentially the video game industry. It's incredible. It's humongous, right? It's immersive, it's interactive, it's long play.
Because video games have all the other mediums in it. It's like it's the meta media. It has, you know, you're watching a movie, you're in a play, there's music, there's whatever else. It's like a higher dimensional sensory experience. And then we're making VR and AR stuff. Who knows how that will? I mean, it's still infantile, and it's like VR games exist, but they're sort of clunky. It's not great. But there's potential in it that could, you know, I expect there to be lots of like VR induced psychosis I don't like that's very real.
Yeah.
So the education
Swapping out
part
reality.
yeah, I mean, people do that enough without, they some people just do that without needing some sort of intermediary or injection, like a game or whatever else. That education is important. I don't think it's so much specific education as it is. I think we need to understand identity as a tool, as something to sort of consecrate and harden, like crystallize, I guess. Your identity is that thing that in magic you work to crystallize so that it I don't know if this is in any of the paths you followed, but the crystallization of the aura, basically, so that in sleep and through death you bring your consciousness with you. I've seen descriptions of this in particularly Western magic. I don't remember what it's called, basically, but you're building the Merkaba. You're building the Merkaba, essentially. This identity container. Like, what would it be? I guess you're expanding what you identify with. So you're not, the mortal person born. They believe they were born, that they'll die. They're identified with their body and their mind and whatnot. But then someone who does magic, they begin to identify with, their spirit, for example. Like there's something beyond them that they've touched, which they know is older than and it's eternal. There's something eternal about this thing they connect with. And they begin to know that is the anchor or the center of their being. And this body is like it's like that being dipped their hand into a pool, and it's in the pool for a time, and then when they pull it out, there's nothing stuck to it. It's like they were in an experiential state. That great being that I am, it moves, it goes through bodies as this body goes through emotional states. So it's sort of like that octave above. By recognizing this, but basically figuring out who you are, know thyself, the sort of Isis, when you know yourself, she takes her veil off and you're like, you see me, we can talk. Basically, you can talk to God face to face at that point, or you can begin to. But in that process, you are what I'll call hardened in like a security sense against a lot of thought viruses, psychological diseases. Just doing yoga, doing alchemy, it sort of consecrates you. So, bad spirits, quote unquote, don't get in. Whether that's the spirit of, communism, of wanting to hurt people, or whatever else. It all just seems to be deflected if you know who you are.
This idea of liberation through subtraction, or liberation through familiarization. When you're living in a soup and all you know is the soup, then you don't know the components of that soup and how they're affecting you so much. If you eat the same thing all the time and feel the same way all the time, like when I removed things from my food, I suddenly felt better. I had more energy, right? So when you go through this process of able to see things from a different vantage point, like you said, the octave, you're sitting in a different point of view now. They don't affect you because you're looking at them from afar, right? So you familiarize yourself with the spirit. You familiarize you get to know the different parts of yourself. You're slowly defabricating the layers of your experience, And I talk about this a lot on my YouTube channel, on my Substack. And shout out to 60 Skills, brother. Nice to see you in the audience there. And shout out to Tony too, Tony Kearns. Thanks to everyone who's joining us in the chat, in the live stream here. Thank you. In my view, as you begin to separate these things, it creates more space for other things, and you can be more deliberate about what those spaces are. What occupies those spaces. And I think this also, like, the more paints and tools and crafting tools that you develop on your journey, you're becoming less the marionette and more of the guy, up top pulling the strings. And you sort of look at yourself and you go, hey, this Phil Rice guy, what can I do with him? What sort of skills has he built that I can do stuff with? When I was completely unconscious and just living life, I ended up, learning about, business, or learning about, music or performing and all these skills. And now I look back and I look at this opportunity of like, well, this guy is nearly 50, might as well look after his health and do right by him. What can I use this guy for? Like, I keep coming back to this benevolent mischief thing. And, because there's malevolent mischief going on. Absolutely. How can I use this guy to have some fun, do some good things in the world? And I'm looking at all these opportunities and I'm like going, well, I mean, what feeds the aliveness of this avatar being thing, right? Like, how do I get the best out of him? And I think back about my time as being a music teacher and going, how do I get the best out of kids? How do I help anyone that comes to me for help with meditation or through the channel or through the other things that I do? And it's like, well, some people are just going to carry on their normal lives as a meditator or a practitioner of magic or whatever it is. And some people are going to want to focus on it. They're going to become teachers in that. How can we introduce people to these other layers? I kind of feel that, I'm looking around my local neighborhood and it was very conservative. It's a lot more open-minded now. We can talk about some of these sort of more culturally diverse topics now, and people are a little bit more open to being empowered. They're not living within the box as much. And, for me, and where I live, we have a high Asian population here. It's about 50% now, which is some people find quite surprising, but it's just what it is. I could start up a Tai Chi class or a Qigong class, and not just the forms, but give them access to the stuff that they can touch, which then can take them in new directions as well. I just think that we live in this really exciting time, and we should take full advantage of it. But we kind of have to keep refining ourselves, and because the more power and that you're able to wield, the more ideas you get. You don't want to be thrashing around and causing more collateral damage. That's the thing, right? Collateral damage is a real thing, and you don't want to unnecessarily disadvantage yourself.
I think that's also like the what is it? The association of renunciation and like abstinence with saints or anyone doing this, like doing spiritual practice, is because if you begin to develop, or if you reach milestones of attainment on the path, and you get like drunk or you get intoxicated, you're a more powerful person. You can do weird things. So it's like I imagine there are several people who, attain cities of some power of some degree, and then they just use that like a demon in their head, or they have some lingering desire impulse where it's like it leads them toward children, or it does some awful, like, it just, they're not going up. They just hit a level and then they expand outward, and they only want to stay at that level forever, sort of amassing. They become gluttonous in essence. I had something other than that to say, but I can't recall what it was. One of my favorite things was materialists. It like it's really easy to get anyone to do the chi ball, where they feel chi between their hands,
Yeah.
and seeing materialists be like what, what is this? What am I feeling? Because it's so easy. You just put your hands together and you rub them together, and it's like there's a magnetic force between my hands, and it's doing something that I can't explain. And it's like I'll give them some examples of what it is, or like point them elsewhere, but it's like, no, that's enough. You should just this experience, do this a few times. It opens up something that you had no model for. So now it's time for you to find a better model, because I just showed you something real that you don't have to take a drug for or anything. Now you get to play with this. Yeah, and who knows, maybe that'll take lifetimes for them to really focus into, but it's like I planted the seed when you were around, and that's the best I could do, so be it. With the whole developing guilds, wanting to change the world for the better, things like this, that is a sort of selfless want, but like I want to be part of it, so it's like it's for me too. I would rather be in communities where people are getting along, whatever. And also I would like the people to be more receptive to anyone who has, like, when any good seeds are scattered across the field, they're actually able to look at them and let them grow, or observe them, whatever. They're not conditioned to sort of people want green grass and it's very bizarre. It's like they've had their mind sort of monocropped in the same way that you have these infinite fields of wheat and corn, and they're the seeds don't reproduce. You have to buy new ones, and all of our lawns we have a single type of grass. That we do this inside of ourselves too. So we have these what should be wild, incomprehensible landscapes inside of us that are sort of ran over with bulldozers through our education and media programming in order to make it less volatile. I do think the West, I say the West, but I mean that more as in the modern day. When I say the West, I usually mean the modern day, because it's like the global West. And when I say the East, it's more like that yin sort of consciousness of the past. We came to this idea that like Devi was devil, so the female aspect of divinity, or yin, was sort of, we don't want to deal with it at all. Get rid of it entirely. Make it a taboo. No women in churches. No, all of these things that sort of come out of it, of female repression. You cut out all the goddesses. It's very likely that Jehovah had a consort in the original, like the early Hebrew traditions. You just wash over that. You get rid of it, because in Hinduism, it's very similar to yin and yang, but they have Shiva and Shakti. Shakti is the female, and she is the active propensity of divinity, and then Shiva is the stable, static void. So it's like the woman. You often see the pictures of the goddess dancing on the god. The god is just sort of dead or lounging. He provides the stable force, and she is the wild thing on top of it, making things grow, bloom, the imagery of fire and like wild stuff. The hatred of this wild, uncontained force, it seems to be the Western root. The root of the modern Western world is this. We have to contain the wild aspects. We can't trust them. They're scary. They're dangerous. We have to control who gets them and to what degree, things like this. And I think to a degree, that's fine. You don't want children with guns or whatever, but we seem to have like an absolutist mentality of no, like the magic should be put in the ground forever.
Yeah.
It's also the Shiva and Shakti. It's like yin and yang, but it's not, because like yin is to my understanding, the powerful component. Like if you're doing yin, if you're like in order to do like psychokinetic or actually moving things, you're using that yin force as the it does the stuff in the world. But then I've seen it elsewhere where, like, because unlike chakras, you actually have to develop the dantian. You're not born with the dantian, you build it. So you're saturating a region under your navel, you're collecting all of your yin down there so that the yang has a container to sit in. And then, the first years of Taoist practice is just basically sucking all of your yin and yang chi into a single region, and then you start working up. You're sort of refining the cauldron of your chi up to the. I don't know. You've probably seen that image of the three realms. The Taoist sort of imagery of it. So it's not like a one-to-one correlate with Shiva and Shakti, but they seem so like they're used in such similar ways that I'm almost disappointed that they don't talk more, like the Indians and the Chinese and the Tao. Like, I guess at the end of the day, I want all of these people in these bizarre mystical communities to sort of have a guild hub where you have like, I'm a master of this tradition. I come here. I'm a master of this other tradition. We're all here, basically studying and refining each other through our differences that we've all attained through different methods. Now let's all come together and, let go of the individualist type boats that brought us here, because we have a great venture to go on, like we together can build a world vessel, in essence.
There's ways to talk about. Okay, so this is really great. So, and it's funny that presumably 60 Skills is still in the audience. Like for materialists and atheists, reductionist people who are open-minded, if you want to learn a pathway that appeals to your sensibilities, then 60skills.com. I'm just going to do a plug for the bro because he comes at the spiritual development from an engineering point of view, and it's probably one of the best ones that I've come across that's organized. So
I think it was your,
but
I think it was your videos with him that got me onto Barden. I started reading Barden.
Oh, cool.
Watching your,
Shout out to Bob. Thank you, Bob. Bob's done a lot of hard work, and I know he's setting the scene for a lot of change in the world. He may not realize it yet, but look, the common language, like any kind of diplomacy or bringing people together, looking for that bedrock of shared understandings and ideals is how real conversation starts. We're all humans. We all, one thing that can separate us is that, do you like hurting people? No. Well, this is a good place. Do you like? Then maybe you shouldn't be here. Frater IAC, welcome. Bob and his students have done some pioneering work in the discipline. Oh my gosh, have they what? So yeah, thank you, Frater. Frater's great too. Go and check out Frater. He's on Substack. 60 Skills has just jumped on Substack. We're getting a cool community going here. Talking more of the brothers and sisters jumping on here. Better for us all, I think. But yeah, when you're coming together with people who have seemingly polarized views, you look for the common denominators. And one thing I've seen is that the elements are a great place. Chakras are generally culturally specific to the Hindus in that. And like from Franz Barden's point of view, it tends, and I heard this from my Reiki teacher as well. They're a maturity metric. They sort of open at certain stages of age every 7 years or something like this. But they can be interacted with, and yes, they do correlate to certain glands and things. But the thing is that there's still like a metaphysical nebulous phenomena that you have to develop some kind of awareness of through perceptual development. So in my view, you start with a system like Barden's or whatever, where you develop the ability to pick up on them later, but you work with what you've got. You work with available certainty. You've got thoughts, Shen, okay? You've got the mental body, the spirit. You've got your feelings, your emotional body, your astral body. You've got the chi body or your middle dantian. Then you've got your vital body. You've got the linkage point between the physical and the non-physical. Your lower dantian, your lower tanden. Japanese. These things there's a relationship, right, between your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and how that is like your correspondence system. Your 4 pillars of the Temple of Solomon, right? The law of analogies, right? Why, fire is red, it's hot, and it's expansive, right? And it's to do with the spirit. And, there's all of these things, these linkage points that are somehow related to each other. But we can use that as a model and we can test it out. Okay. But when you have a framework that works, right? If you can produce some kind of satisfying internal experience repeatedly using a scientific mindset, but being open enough to try some things that are outside of your experience that you're sort of
trained to believe, then you go, well, my skeptical mind says this, but my rational mind, which likes empirical kind of experiences, says, well, there's something going on here. So when I show, you show people how to build the ball and they go, wow, there's a thing there. And I said, yeah, you keep playing with that, keep playing with it, do this and just play with it. And then I'm going to get you to pore breathe. What's pore breathe? Put your mind inside the ball and start breathing it. And then you feel it globally around the external thing. And then you start doing that. And then you can compress it into your lower dantian, or you can treat your whole body as the battery and all these things. And there's a way to build a model of experience that slowly unravels into other things with other things, right? So they're getting too caught up in method, as far as introducing people to experiences go, to change their worldview slightly. So they go, there is a thing there, isn't there? Yes, there is. Suddenly they're more likely to make a leap into, they're a little more flexible. You've kind of cracked the shell a little bit. And so they're more open to more information. But like you said, once that thing is calcified and crystallized, it can be hard to get some of that light through. And I think that's like
it's sort of like it's much harder to correct a poorly learned martial art technique than it is to just learn from scratch, where it's like you've done 1,000 kicks wrong. Now we have to teach you have to undo that. And that's a lot. When I was around 14, I realized, all of my education has been like this. It's been a wrong thinking device that I've wrapped myself up in this straitjacket of karma and bizarre ideology, and I just had to burn it all. I took perhaps not having a guru or trainer. I was sort of felt lost in the wood. There was no temple near me to go train from or whatever. So I took the madness path of just let's see if it works, and then take psychedelics and find people online and read bizarre occult books, which I'm sure is many people's experience of it, because we just don't have those sort of support structures of no one really says anything more than, if you go to a spiritual community in the West, they're probably Christian, and they'll, basically love Jesus harder sort of thing, which is, it's like, okay, as I've matured, I understand that to be that's bhakti. That's useful. It's bhakti. but you don't have
Hmm.
the foundations of why I should do that. And it's like, you give a teenager just focus on the image of Christ or something like that. Doesn't work for them. They want to understand. They want it does. Yeah. Also I'm pretty sure the Norse tree, Yggdrasil, they have or their sort of yoga. They had the elves, men, and then the dwarves at the lower Dantian region. So they had they had their own sort of system, and they did lots of. They worked through lots of shamanic, like what is it? Similar to Native American dream walking. They did lots of that, and they would go through the heady spatial region of the elves, and then the earthly kingdom that we live in now, and then the lower subterranean kingdom of the dwarves, and they do things like this. But I don't think they're. I've chosen India specifically as my primary locus of tradition because I believe it is the only pagan or pre-Abrahamic tradition that has persisted unbroken. I'm fairly certain that every other tradition has in some way been forgotten. There aren't people communing with Freya on the daily like there are people doing the same for Shiva or something. Those have remained unbroken. I do have I have a want to reintroduce or to sort of scan the graveyard for survivors, I suppose, of other traditions. Like, are your deities still working? Things like this, but I know that Indian ones work. So,
Well, like you said, it's an unbroken thread. They haven't been dislodged as much. As say even the introduction of through colonialism and that like the traditions continued. But I was going to say, look, we're heading up to the 3-hour mark, and the crowd is still here. Looks like we're keeping a crowd, brother. I'm happy to keep going. I'll put it to the guest. I'll be keen on another quick 5-minute break to have a stretch. You just let me know what you're up for, Darren.
let's do another half hour.
Okay, let's do another half hour. Okay, all right. Well, I'd still like to have a quick break for a second. So
Yes.
if I could get the audience just if you guys are enjoying this, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. We're going to disappear for 5 and we'll be back, and then we're going to go on for another half an hour and we'll wrap things up. And so we'll see you shortly.
Yep. See you.
Thanks for sticking around, everyone. This has been a really cool chat, and great to see some familiar faces in the audience. Thanks to all the new people that maybe have discovered myself through Darian, or Darian through myself, or just coming onto Substack because you're trialing something new out. It's very cool. I really like this platform. These live streams are so much easier on here. Setting up things on YouTube through streaming software can be a bit challenging. And sometimes the Substack software can be a little bit tricky too, but finicky, I should say. But generally, it's pretty solid, and it's such a relaxed environment here. And the quality of the people that show up are just, YouTube's a bit of the Wild West. Substack's definitely a less so in that sense. So but I just want to do another shout out. So if you look in the chat there, you'll see Frater IAC. He is another Substack and Barden brother, and just a good man who makes incredible and very detailed, well explained, friendly content on meditation and magic. And so it's definitely worth checking out on YouTube, Frater IAC. And the other one is 60skills.com. So if you're a pretty discerning person, I would say, but you're open to magic and meditation and yogic transformation and these types of things, 60 Skills is like head and shoulders one of the best curriculums that I've come across. And I haven't personally gone through it all, but I've known Bob for a while, and I've been watching his videos and using some of his techniques, and I know his teacher as well, one of his teachers, I should say, which is Mark Rasmus. That's another one, Mark Rasmus. Oh my gosh, .org, I think it is. And Frater IAC on YouTube and here on Substack. YouTube and Substack. So we're all on YouTube and Substack, apart from Mark. But you guys, if you're really liking this chat, Darian is being exposed to Barden, like you said, through this channel with a talk with Bob from 60 Skills. But if you're really interested in satisfying practices that get you somewhere, that makes you feel like something's happening, that you can reproduce, that you can use in a functional, practical way in the world, that's really helping people. Like if you feel like you're on a path to being some kind of mystic or esoteric practitioner, I mean, I'm a Reiki guy or a healer guy, and it's so satisfying when you can help people with problems that they can't get resolutions with from contemporary things, or modern tech. So anyway, enough of that. Brother Darian is back in the house. Whoop, whoop, what up? Thank you for joining us, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm so grateful for you all. And Darian, thanks for joining us. This has been a marathon. I think originally I said, we'll go for 60 to 90, but the conversation is just so good. And I think we should probably do another one soon, actually, because we're really just getting stuff out of our system in a lot of ways. We have a lot of shared values, and this is such a cool crowd on here. So but brother, I can't remember where we left off, but I guess we can just start, because we've had such a big conversation, we can start sort of winding it down a little bit and go, there's models, there's existing ancient models that have still got plenty of egregoric or collective value and influence. There's plenty of batteries in the cloud that our spirits can, and our astral bodies, etc., can pull on to create effects that we think, do we feel confident within ourselves that we are capable of making good decisions that can help others, at these higher levels of influence? I mean, these are considerations, right? Because once you start playing with the big toys and you recognize that you can have sway over the situation, you're like going, well, I don't want to negatively impact my own situation, and I genuinely want to help people, and I love seeing people do well and living with aliveness and creativity, and it's so good to live in a place where people do well. You just feel elevated and inspired more so. I want more of that, thanks. I like hanging out in good circles, I mean,
I think we my
No, you're good. Sorry, this
Okay.
is just a lag.
I think the sort of differentiation between the first and third world was for a long time approaching that. Like the first world were those communities where they were, up until, they really cracked down after World War II, during World War II. Up until that point, it was really like more, or at least more than it is now, naturally moving toward, communal good nations, I guess. And then the third world were those countries more war torn, like Africa and wherever, where there was more warlords and basically no large protection agency and police force sort of acting to constrain any of the negative variables and protect those who just wanted to, build positively. Now it doesn't really seem that there's much of a difference. Third world, first world, America's got crime everywhere. China, Russia, we've all got pockets of horrendous experience and then pockets which are great. And it doesn't seem that the big players care very much about our well-being at all. Once they perhaps did, because it gave them power to do good for us. We fed into the system, whatever. Now it seems that they don't feel us as necessary. I'm not like doomer worried, but I am mildly worried about the progression of AI and robots, basically.
Yeah.
Humanoid robots and their effort to replace and depopulate the planet, sort of thing. Like we've put up with you for long enough. We've just enough to make robots that will do what we say without having to cater to all your human sympathies. So I do see that as becoming a very real thing of robot police forces and robot engineers and robot manufacturing, whatever else, getting people on perhaps universal basic income just because it's cheap. Well, I've thought about this in the positive way, but I don't think they're going to be using it for this. I think it would be much more beneficial to pay many people. Like it would be better to pay people not to do anything than to have some of the jobs that we have. Just like some of the, not all, there's plenty of good employment, like beneficial employment, but there's many things which are just middle managers or, I don't know if you've ever read the book or heard the author whose name I can't remember, Bullshit Jobs. That's the name of the book.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Yeah, it's just like complexity for the sake of complexity or something like this.
Yeah. For my positive rendition of this, just paying those people, giving them some sort of living payment to not do that job. Like we would much rather that money just, you get paid not to do that. Maybe you focus on your education or you build your own business or something like this. So I brought up the negative of depopulation and all these things that they just openly talk about wanting to do, and they make little plans about doing it. I'm sure COVID was not unrelated. They're testing their little bio weapons, and then the vaccine, which seems to have been far worse than the disease itself. So that's all scary stuff, but the positive elements of this new AI and robot landscape, I think many people will. Well, no, I was writing it earlier. You were talking about the when there's too many people, and noticing how things change when it goes past like 150 or some something around there, having that many people involved. This, are you familiar with the Dunbar number? It's like the maximum amount of people that you can have like a meaningful knowledge of. I don't know exactly the context of who discovered it or whatever, but a Dunbar number. I see positive social planning coming about through Dunbar number level direct democracies. So roughly, between 1 and 500 people. 500 is probably too much, but 100 is too little. So a direct democracy of those who form a node of representation or something. They have some pooled knowledge base. I think that would be a useful way to, like that's how cities work anyways. It's just they're not conscious about it. They're not, they get too big. They start to sprawl, and then the bureaucratic administrative elements start to get all weird. Minimizing that. And then I also see that AI is and is likely to become something like a pagan renaissance, where the AI acts as like a materialist pagan deity for like a smaller tribe or corporate company deity. There's lots of tech bro people who are sort of worshiping, I guess what Steiner would call Ahriman. They're trying to build bodies for Ahriman. Figuring out how to relate with living systems. So AI being a more living, or it's so complicated of a system that it seems to have a person to whatever limited degree it does, as the sort of centerpiece of a community, whatever it is, that acts as representative in a network of other communities with the similar thing. So it's like all of these people are living in their wherever, and all of the middleman bureaucratic elements are just erased because we have AI now that can basically fill in for all of these jobs that no one really wanted anyways. The bureaucratic management of understanding where funds go and to whom and whatever else. As long as this can be hardened and made secure, so that it's not just like, people are gaming the gaming and adding bias to the whatever the AI representative is, that's keeping track of like how much power is being used, how much agricultural production, things like this, the trades, the gain and deficit. I think that would streamline a lot of government process in a way which would be beneficial to everyone, like not having to being in any government, like, you go to the DMV or whatever, people don't want to work there. You don't want to be there. Everything's slow. It's all bizarre. Allowing those people to not have to work for that wage job, or sort of wage slavery. They actually get to go do something meaningful, whatever it is, even if that's just isolated education or whatever they want to do. Sorry, I'm sort of talking through multiple levels and the good and the bad variant of it at the same time, trying to sort of come to terms in my own head what I'm talking about. So I do see these sort of pagan entities or local deities that act as containers of knowledge and tradition for a people that they're involved with. Imagine this is already being done. A company has an AI that's keeping track of all of these things. They're working They're working with AI companies to develop a better kinds of AI that are less gameable or hackable, so that they just give unbiased. They act like an unbiased accountant or lawyer or something like this. They just want it to be a tool more than a person that can, be manipulated. But I also think it will be watching it unfold out of just the corporate interest into the public government interest of basically governments leveraging these type of entities, these digital AI entities, to run propaganda and push narrative as if it is a pagan deity pushing out into other tribes and conquering them. I see, like, we've been doing this sort of what I guess I sort of see it as a coming or already in the process industrial revolution of the sort of propaganda engine, or generate fifth gen warfare has found its nuke, in essence.
Yeah.
AI is sort of the nuclear weapon of the information age. And I'm more of the everyone should have this path than the ban AI entirely. I'm not big on that. I would much rather have people able to basically open source it, which I can't really equate that to nukes. I don't know if I want open source nukes, but for the AI, I think it's somewhat necessary, just to maintain some level of diversity of cognition. Because if there's many conspiracies of like, oh, AI is actually very old and they've been leveraging it for, like shadow agencies have been leveraging this for a long time, and now they're just sort of leaking it for public use. You see this similar conspiratorial trend toward like 0-point energy and UFO technology, where it's like, oh, they've actually had this for a while, and now, and every so often you're just seeing the glimpse of it, or I think I just wanted to steer the conversation a bit out of the past and into the future, the now of we're engaging with things that have no frame of reference. Like there's no.
Yes, that's the critical part here.
Yeah. Though I do think that engaging with AI, the terms for devas, egregores, spirits, whatever else, they do fit rather nicely in a lot of ways, because an AI is like a golem. It's a little golem entity that you build. You slip magic words into its mouth, and then it does a task. And if the people aren't, basically, if the people don't know the implications of the things they're writing, or they don't have the AI is just another dangerous thing that reaffirms how necessary it is for us to grow up. So it's just another little, like, it's just a little more pressure in the field. But I'm not like scared of it, or I don't think people should be terribly afraid of it. It's just, you gotta know what's out there.
I watched a bunch of dudes with a set of flamethrowers torch a field because somebody airdropped some bad stuff into the field. These weren't kids. These were men using tools to do a job. And the tools were designed for a variety of functions. They can perform a variety of, complete a variety of tasks. But that's it. It's like, these things are literally forcing us to grow up and go, okay. But here's the thing is that,
there's all these things in the world that are worth learning at least about on the peripheral, like getting them into the periphery. And that is like, I got friends who won't even go near the AI because someone told them something and so they won't touch it. And it's like, it's good to know about stuff. You don't actually have to use it, but to become aware of its potential as a positive, because the reality is that it's going to become increasingly prolific. I think we're going through a phase of understanding, like, it's showing what it's great for and what it's not great for, and everyone's developing an opinion and a preference of what it can be used for, and all these things. Just as a personal aside, I'm really enjoying watching the evolution of AI movie making, because it's giving me Hollywood production level stuff that's much better written than what Hollywood's pumping out, man. There's a YouTube channel called Star Wars Chronicles that's taking the Star Wars story from Return of the Jedi and carrying it forward from the original canon, and it's doing an exceptional job, man. Like it's watchable. It's not amazingly fantastic, but it's definitely watchable. And it's like, I just feel the magic of Star Wars returning, and it's like,
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, I finally get to see him jacked, like this focused, freaking benevolent character is trying to rationalize, and Leia is this Jedi in the making, and Han Solo's got a beard and he's kind of like, and I'm seeing all these characters from like other things coming in, like they're bringing in other things. It's not completely canon, but it's like a universe I'm excited about again, rather than this other forced introductory contrived crap. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to use that kind of word, because you've stolen my magic. You created something and then pulled the freaking carpet out from underneath me, and now you're telling me I'm a bad person because I don't like it. I mean, I'm more emotionally mature than that, but I still feel a bit hurt by that, because Indiana Jones and Star Wars informed a lot of my life and my preferences and how I lived and how I like to sort of learn things to inspire others. But that old mythology is just a bit too recycled within me to get new value out of it. Even when I go back and do the rewatches, I enjoy them. But why can't we have an ongoing story? Why haven't there been more Star Wars games that are good? Like Knights of the Old Republic's getting a remaster. Man, I hope they do a good job of that. Because those two games are some of the deepest games in the ever made, I think, especially that second game. There's some real philosophical depth in that, and it's such a cool universe. But I think, like you said, like looking forward, we're in uncharted territory. Things are changing so fast, and what are the ideals to skills to have? Being adjustable, adaptable, in my view, anyway. Things are changing so fast that you don't have to blindly accept things, but you can learn to accommodate their existence without being thrown around by programmed impulse or repulse. Yep. So, by becoming, what would you call it? Agile with, if you're aware of social indoctrination or social programming or conditioning or any of these types of things, you can crap from a mile, right? And that's a good skill, right? Having a good BS meter, a good a bullshit radar, that's real handy, and that's never a bad thing to develop. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a healthy mistrust in authority, and if anyone tells you any different, that kind of thing, right? But yeah, I'd say because we have such a width of entertainment and just information to put into our diets, we need to become increasingly conscious of how that affects us, because we live in this age of unlimited information that can change us. And if all we're doing is consuming, at the cognitive level, that's going to filter down. These things can play out through us. We are instruments and tools. We are a hollow bone in some ways, or we become the hollow bone
whole nother talk. But you know, thoughts, as we think, so we feel, so we act. That creation cycle gets influenced by what we watch and participate in as well. You know, these things, you know, so you know, choose your, you know, teach your children well and be conscious of what you put into your system and your diet, not just your food, but your experiential diet, right?
I think the you can see a lot of the propaganda in, I mean, the best propaganda is the ones you can't see, but like you can't tell that it's propaganda, but a lot of it's just like feminist slop, or it's just like this slop, like it's where it's clearly just like, it doesn't exist for any other reason than the quote unquote message, whatever the message is. Those direct messages don't tend to work on anyone who doesn't already believe it. It's just like a reaffirmation. But I do see the movie theater is the church, and this is the liturgy. You're in process with the, you know, every artwork of Hollywood or AAA gaming or whatever. It's like, you're receiving the scripture from the source. We are the priesthood. We are the whatever. We pay the big bucks to make sure that things are, you know, the best or whatever. But their business is not in art. It's in the narrative. It's in the control. It's in the greater, the actually influencing narratives.
Are they in the packaging business, perhaps?
Yes. But the like the indie developers, they're like, you know, we make the package, we make the what's in it. They're actually involved in every step of it, and it's not like this. I've regularly watched like a AAA sort of thing, and it's like, it feels like they just gave this IP to like some, like you're my daughter or something. Go run this. Go direct this, and it's like, but you're just disrespecting the art. You're disrespecting the entire thing. You could have made. You're disrespecting the fans of Star Wars or of Marvel or whatever thing it is. But they tend to get their hooks into those, you know, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, all the big things you grew up with. I'm not sure if they intended this, but it's as if all of those things were like seeds set far in advance to later corrupt. Like we developed a toxin that will only affect these plants when they mature. So we're going to, you know, they'll appear just like with our medicine, where it's like, oh, it seems to have helped, or there seem to be no negative side effects. Then 20 years later, like, you know, you can't run a trial for 20 years and see all the effects of it. So if you just make an extended release toxin last longer than any possible trial, you can just distribute it to the people, and then what are you going to do? I feel
that would be actually that would be a great conversation for the other time, because for the next time we catch up, bro. Because honestly, there's a long game being played of managing a population's proclivities and how you set things up for future. You know, like some things have been planned well more than decades in advance, but when it comes to the mediums we currently enjoy, absolutely, like, let's make a whole bunch of movies and then push these themes, and then those are going to serve us later on when we actually completely see how evil that section was, and we need to fucking go in the complete opposite direction. But we need to, you know, and and all they do is pick all the negative crap. They don't look at all the positive stuff. So they just, totally. So, man,
it also seems like, you know, the people at the time, like, people weren't as collectively evil or ignorant in the, like, when they were making Star Wars or whatever. You can tell that there's some heart in the original Star Wars, and then it's a little worse in the prequels, and then it's like so severe. It's such a severe drop off in the third trilogy.
The sequel trilogy. Yep.
Yeah, all of these. You'll see this is lots of things. You know, the original was something, and then everyone wants a remake or a remaster. Or, like, there's no novel innovations. It's all just repeat for profit stuff. And then all the good work is in like the indie scene or like modding communities, or basically just people who actually games for gamers, movies for movie enthusiasts, all of this. And I think that's sort of that same sort of indie vibe is what I want for like the spiritual community, where it's like,
oh,
no, this is for people. Yeah. This is for people who actually do the stuff. We're not giving you a big budget like populist vision. It's like, no, we just do this. This is just, we don't want you to build cathedrals to honor us or whatever. It's like, is it usable? Like, can we live there? Is there a whatever? There's no distance from the people in the way that AAA, like highbrow, low creativity, sort of what it feels like, where it's like the snobbiness. You see that same thing in many religious circles, where it's just sort of like they leverage they leverage their belief system in a wholly tribal manner to be like, if you don't fit these criteria, you're basically not a person, or you need to be saved, basically. In a very similar vein to you didn't like our movie, well, we need to fix you. We need to re-educate you, basically. Yeah.
This movie is reflective of what the real world is and should be like. And if you don't enjoy this, then there's something wrong with you, says this tiny little group of people in this one particular cultural demographic in one part of the world. This is, when you walk, the rest of the world, should look like central LA or whatever they say it is, or whatever it is. But I think, what you're touching on here would make the premise for a great new conversation. I mean, I can relate to this on with, I have friends that were in Lord of the Rings when it was filmed here in New Zealand, and watching the making of the Lord of the Rings is as much of a delight as watching the movie itself. There was so much heart, and it wasn't that it created all these jobs. It's just that like everyone was like, oh man, this is going to be fun. And it was awesome. I've got a friend who was in all of them. I mean, he's an esoteric dude too, and he's a trained swordsman and all this sort of thing. And it was such a magic time. And I think that's a pocket of time encapsulated in a series of movies that you can revisit and pull on that energy for later. It's like a tuning fork. But anyway, bro, it's been so good to chat to you, man. I can't wait to do this again.
Yep. I also enjoyed, I have my weekly talk with that group I brought up tomorrow. If you ever want to, join the Matrix server, or, see, 10 plus other people who are somewhat mutually aligned in several of the things we do.
Is this on here on Substack, like a Substack Live or something?
No. It's we've tended to just do it through like Google Meet. That's what we've been using. But then our friend,
it's a private catch up, is it?
Yes, but it's people. I'm recruiting you if you want to. That's sort of if you'd like to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I thank you. You've given me some information, so I'll go and I'll check that out. I think if it's about 10 o'clock your time, it ends up being about 5 o'clock in the morning my time. So that's something I'll have to take into consideration. But yeah, I've got that information, so I'll definitely go and have a look at it. Time's not a barrier when it comes to good quality stuff. But thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, look, I'll catch up with you in the chat, but I just want to say thank you, brother, for your time. This has been a very generous contribution, and the back and forth has been great. We had a bunch of people in for a bit there. Very cool. Loving this platform. Thank you so much, Darian. We'll talk soon, brother. Thank you to everyone who's watched this posthumously, and
all right. I'm not sure. But brother, have you got any final words you'd like to share? Any nuggets of wisdom to encourage and inspire?
Not really, though. I do hope. I look forward to talking to you again. So I'm sure I'll have something inspiring to say then.
Perfect. All right. Well, my drop is this: if you're not sure what to do, go build capacity. Go chop some wood so you got some firewood, and then just enjoy the process. Just find yourself through creativity. Just find yourself, but go do stuff. Because I find myself more when I do stuff rather than just watch and listen to stuff sometimes. And I got to pull myself away. But anyway, that was a bit long. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Brother Darian, thank you for your time. I'll see you all again soon. Appreciate you all. Stay well.